Good evening. I'd like to call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Verona Town Council for June 12th, 2023. Madam Clerk, would you please read our Open Public Meetings Act compliance notice?
The notice requirement of the Open Public Meetings Act is satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Township Council being held both in person in municipal council chambers and via Zoom video conferencing. Specifically, the time and date were included in the annual meeting notice. This information, along with the public internet link and telephone call-in information, is posted in the municipal building, sent to the official newspapers of the township, the Verona New York Times and the Star Ledger, at least 48 hours preceding the start time of this meeting. Agenda and handouts can be viewed online at veronanj.org/council meetings. A public comment period will be held in the order it's listed on the meeting agenda, and instructions on how to comment will be provided at the appropriate time. All meetings are recorded and will be posted online for public viewing. Those wishing to speak during any public comment period need only provide their name and municipality. Street addresses are not required. Please be advised that should a member of the public choose to state their street address, it will not be redacted prior to the video recording of this meeting being posted online.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland?
Here. Here.
Councilman McAvoy?
Here.
Deputy Mayor McGrath?
Here.
Mayor Roman?
Here.
Mayor also President, Township Manager Jody Arco, Township Attorney Brian Malloy, and myself, Municipal Clerk Jennifer Carey.
Thank you very much. Would you please rise? Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very much. I will begin this evening by welcoming our Essex County liaison. We'll trade people record.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and hopefully everyone find help. We're going into the summertime, and hopefully you will receive this pamphlet in the mail and in person. And there's a lot of great things on there. We have fireworks, outside picnics, and everything else that is going on through all of our park system. The fireworks are June 28th in Weequahic Park, Friday, June 30th in Branchburg Park, and my favorite day, July 3rd, at Brookdale Park. And a week from this Wednesday in Verona Park, there'll be Neil Diamond and Friends, and there's an array of other events throughout the county happening at all of our parks. Very enjoyable. We just built a brand new stage or bandstand in Brookdale Park. It's very, very nice. If you need more pamphlets, please don't hesitate to call, but a lot of residents should have received this in the mail. I know I have, and a lot of other people should have. The other thing is we still have our mobile health vehicle out there, and you can call for an appointment schedule an appointment at 973-877-8456 or at EssexCountyNJVaccination.org, and you can schedule a health clinic, etc. I did mention to the Parks Director about the dead trees in front of the playground, and hopefully they will be taken care of. If not, I was there Sunday morning, a lot of action happening in Verona Park. So I am walking the park, and if you see anything, and I keep my eyes out also. So if you need anything, Mayor, any comments, questions?
None from me. Anyone?
Yes, I wanted to thank you, Mr. Coulter. I wanted to thank the county executive and Mr. Brown and Mr. Ramos for coming out to our Hillwood senior residential facility and giving out hundreds of boxes of free food to our residents. It was really a great event. I know for me personally, I don't get a chance to go to Hillwood a lot and be invited into a community event. And the residents were just so appreciative. Much for addressing food insecurity in Verona, especially amongst our senior population. And please pass our thanks to the county executive and the entire team that arranged that distribution.
I'll be glad to do that when I see him in the morning.
Anyone else?
Anyone else?
Councilman?
I just also want to acknowledge house, and that was in response to a inquiry. They've since gotten back to me. They've had a really positive experience. In the Parks Department for enabling that.
And if you see the blue tarp on the boathouse that I saw this Sunday,
Yes,
we did go out, we're putting on a brand new roof. And the paddle boats are in the water, so things are working. And I saw something yesterday that now there are two water spouts
That's
and
great. It's great.
we're working on other
Very
things.
Well, again, I just really want
See you, Councilman Timber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Coltree, in our last, I think before our last meeting, I talked to you about the potential of doing a town hall about traffic on county roads, and you're going to talk to the engineer.
Yes, I did pass that on to the administrator and everything goes under review up the chain.
Right, so you'll let us know when you.
Yes.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank you.
You have a pretty busy agenda this evening, so I'm going to keep my comments very brief. Just first off, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who was involved in putting together and participating in the Memorial Day Parade. I've been to a lot of township events. This one just somehow or another kind of felt like the perfect little small town, parade, and just it was so well put together. There were so many people participating both in the parade and watching. It felt like half the town was out there. So I do want to say thank you to Mr. Diarco and Christine Gould in the Township Manager's office. Mr. Diarco is very big on supporting veterans in particular, so we did invite veterans. We had a great turnout from them. We had a lot of our young musicians from the school, the marching band, the choir. Every time that any of our music programs are out, I'm just astonished just how talented these kids are. We had tons of scouting troops, churches, community organizations. It really was just a great event. So just thank you to everyone for that. I was just very honored to be able to participate. Also, the Valerie Fund walk and run was another great event. Thank you to the county for all of their work in putting that together, as well as the Valerie Fund. The county in particular had a very large team walking there, and I understand that they also were able to contribute financially as well to a great extent. So thank you. County executive was there as well as the sheriff. So that was just a great event. And then from the planning board, we are very rapidly wrapping up on 177, which is the Spectrum 360 redevelopment. There's probably going to be one last hearing on this, and it's going to probably be planning board deliberation at that point in time. So there will be an opportunity for final public comment within that hearing. I believe that's scheduled for the regular meeting of the planning board on the 22nd. There is one other item of business on the agenda that evening, but we don't expect that to take particularly long. So if you would like to participate in that planning process, that would be the meeting. And with that, I will pass it over to Township Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to focus on the items listed on my agenda, the council agenda. We do have a reschedule relative to our affordable housing units, and I have our staff here, our professionals here tonight, and they'll address the.
It's just reintroduce yourself.
Sure. Do I need to press this button or?
If you see a red light, you're good.
All right, I do see the red. All right. Good evening. I'm Dan Halbin of DMR, the township's affordable housing planning consultant firm. With me tonight is Jamie Platchik of Dakota's Law, the Affordable Housing Council for the township, and Laura Mongello, the appointed administrative agent for the township's affordable housing program. As the agenda states, tonight we have 5 items that we're looking to have acted on, including adopting the development fee / affordable housing ordinance amendment, adopting a resolution to endorse the housing element and fair share plan that the planning board adopted on May 25th, adopting the affordable housing spending plan, adopting the affirmative marketing plan for the affordable housing program, and adopting a resolution of intent to fund. So I know there's an order that is written on the agenda, but I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'll do it in the order that I have written in my notes. To start off is the development fee and affordable housing ordinance. We presented briefly on that last month for the introduction of the ordinance, where we explained the purposes of that ordinance. I think there's members of the public here that weren't there last month, so I'll just briefly restate. The affordable housing, the development fee ordinance was updated to include mandatory language regarding the collection and spending of revenues from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The big thing I brought up last time was the requirement to charge a 2.5% development fee on new non-residential development, which is a state mandated fee. And the affordable housing ordinance generally explains or I guess lays out the statutory and regulatory requirements for operating and administering affordable housing units, including I guess selecting how families to occupy those units. And it includes a required language from the settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center that requires any new housing development consisting of 5 or more units to set aside 15 to 20% of their units for low and moderate income households, depending on whether the units are rental or for sale. On May 25th, when the planning board adopted the housing element and fair share plan, we also had them complete their consistency review of that ordinance. They did have some recommendations for the township council to make certain changes to the ordinance. Specifically, there were some Scrivener's errors that were not an issue where we changed, and then the other big thing that was brought up that night was the mention of an accessory dwelling unit or accessory apartment in the ordinance. I'll tell you what I told the planning board: the inclusion or exclusion of that language in the ordinance has no impact on the town. Having that language in there doesn't obligate you to allow accessory dwelling units. Removing that language doesn't really have any effect. What all that language actually does is state that the money that the township is collecting into its affordable housing trust fund can be used to subsidize accessory dwelling units for low and moderate income households if at some point in the future, either this round or the next round, the township wanted to use that as a mechanism for addressing their affordable housing obligation. It would require you to update your housing plan to do that. So there's no threat of any kind of requirement for that if you were to leave the language in there. But again, and also no damage to the ordinance if you remove it. I had also made some changes to the ordinance myself. Just for clarity, specifically towards the end of the ordinance, I created a separate section on what projects are exempt from residential development fees. This is all language that exists in your current ordinance. I simply relocated it within the body of the ordinance to be a bit clearer, because as it was when we introduced it, it was mixed in with the exceptions language for the non-residential development fees. So moving that language has no actual substantive effect on the ordinance. So tonight, if they're all is well with that ordinance, we can the township may adopt it, and we'll have that over with. If you want to ask some questions on that, you can do that now, or I can keep going, whichever you prefer.
Let's just kind of, just so we don't get too lost here. If anyone has any questions or discussions specifically on the ordinance, I'll just offer an opportunity after each of these items, and we can have any general discussion at the end.
Just a quick question. In your opinion, the changes that we made were de minimis?
They were de minimis. They don't require reintroduction. They don't impact the effect of the ordinance.
Anyone else on the ordinance at the moment?
Yeah, Mayor, if you and Mr. Plotch, I could just give a brief review for the public as to why we're doing all of this related to the settlement we did, and either different items on the agenda.
Thank you, Councilman. Jamie Plotch of Dakotas, Affordable Housing Council. As everyone may remember, and some of the members of the public who are here or viewing this tonight might remember, in September of 2021, a settlement was ultimately entered into previously that, and then in September 2021, the court entered an order requiring certain compliance matters to take place so that the township could comply with the terms it had agreed to with both Fair Share and any other interveners to resolve that declaratory judgment action. And the reason we're here today is now to bootstrap and bring everything together. And once we are done here tonight, thanks to the members of this governing body, we are now at a point where we will return to the special master and to Fair Share and to the court and say we are ready to schedule and notice for our final hearing for an entry of final judgment of compliance and repose, which will then protect the township going forward against any what's commonly referred to as builder's remedy lawsuits, where a developer comes in and says, you have not satisfied your affordable housing obligations, so I'm willing to build this project, but I need increased density because I will, as a result of that increased density, provide the affordable units that would satisfy the township or go towards satisfaction of the township's affordable housing obligation, which is not otherwise provided for. You as a governing body did the right thing and were proactive, and you did things such as adopting the overlay zone that we had previously handled. And now you've circled around and you've done everything else that needs to be done. You've developed the programs, you have adopted the manuals, you will have provided for funding, and you will now have a housing element and fair share plan with an accompanying spending plan in place going forward for the third round and also what was known as the gap years. So obviously we all know the fourth round is not that far in the future, but what you've done is you put the township in a much better position for starting that fourth round and working towards satisfying whatever your obligation may be calculated to be than what you encountered with reaching that goal of satisfaction with respect to the third round. Obviously, that was no fault to the township or any previous governing body. It was simply a matter of what happened with COA, the stagnancy of COA, the inability to adopt appropriate third round rules, which ultimately resulted as a result of the New Jersey Supreme Court decision in March of 2015, returning it to the courts for adjudication. Obviously, with 547 municipalities in the state, and everybody was forced to go to court, nearly every municipality. So you got stuck in a backlog, and there are only so many matters one judge is able to handle. But finally, you are here today, you are at the finish line. And so once we leave here tonight, the municipal clerk will provide us with the certified copies of the resolutions and the ordinance. We will then take those and send forward them to the special master of Fair Share and say we are ready to go to the judge with you so that we can have this matter scheduled. Everything on here is a required obligation of the township. Nothing in here is negotiable, debatable as to whether it needed to be done or should have been done. We're here tonight making sure that the township satisfies its obligations pursuant to the terms of the settlement. And what that settlement did was protect this township from further litigation or further interveners or further attacks on what steps the township may or may not have taken over the past 16 years to address its affordable housing obligation. So I thank you, Mayor. I thank you all members of the council for getting us here tonight. We were here, I believe, July of last year, the first time, and through no fault of the township or its consultants, it took a little longer than expected, but we're here, everybody's on the same page, and we're ready to wrap this up for you once and for all.
Just procedurally, the way I'm going to do this is we'll go through all the explanations of all the ordinance and all the resolutions. I'll offer an opportunity for general public comment and questions on them as a group. And then we can vote on them. I just would like the professionals to be able to present on all of these rather than us, kind of voting on each one of these one at a time. Might make a little more sense. So anyway, that's the objection to the process wise.
Just a question on projects for our municipal clerk. So the ordinance though needs its own public hearing.
Correct. There will be a public hearing within the ordinance as well to comply with those rules. But I figure it might be easier if anyone just has any general comment or questions before we particularly for the resolutions. So I'll still hold that public hearing as required. So. Let's move on to whichever what is next on your list.
Sure. So the next item is the endorsement of the housing element and fair share plan. The housing element and fair share plan is technically a element of the master plan, which is why it's required to be adopted by the planning board, but the Fair Housing Act for New Jersey and the COA rules that have been preserved by the Supreme Court by the Mount Laurel 4 decision require the governing body to endorse the housing plan. So the plan was adopted by the planning board on May 25th with again de minimis edits, again just some Scrivener's errors and mention of the accessory apartment program, which we removed at their request. The plan has been reviewed by the special master, and she's given her thumbs up that it's okay from her perspective, and she should support it when we present it to the court. It contains all of the required aspect or elements of the settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center and nothing more, as Jamie had explained. It's none of the contents of that are negotiable. They're all in the settlement agreement or required by the remaining code rules. So tonight you would be adopting a resolution endorsing the adopted housing plan.
Any council questions on that item? Councilman?
Just one, in page 2, that one to talk about the exact one. What's a list of newspapers below, but there's no list of newspapers below.
That is, I think that's the affirmative marketing.
Oh, sorry, did I skip one?
You might
We're on the
have.
housing element fair share
Oh,
plan,
sorry.
Yeah.
item D. So that's the spending plan. Yes, sir.
I can, we'll, that's, I think, not next, but after, the one after next. If
All right, any other council questions on the endorsement of the planning board's of the plan? Next item.
All right, next item is the resolution adopting / approving the spending plan. The spending plan is a required piece of the housing element and fair share plan, and what it does is it states how all past and projected revenues into the affordable housing trust fund will be spent toward the implementation of the affordable housing plan. The contents of that plan as in the adopted or in the spending plan that you're going to be adopting tonight are expenditure of $40,000 toward a rental rehabilitation program, and what that is a program that makes funds available for low and moderate income households that occupy substandard housing within the borough to assist them in making substantial improvements to their home to make them to bring them up to code. That number was originally, the requirement was originally 24 in your settlement agreement, but we were able to bring that down significantly by doing a affordable housing, or I'm sorry, a housing conditions survey, which I did with Stephen and with your building inspector. So 2 units of your obligation are being addressed through this program that you're setting aside $40,000 for, and another 8 are being addressed through the county's HOPE or home program, which is funded by HUD. HUD money can't be spent on rental units, so the municipalities have to set aside affordable housing trust fund for rental units. The other piece that you're spending money on is paying off a portion of the bonds that were taken out to fund the Pearl project, the 100% affordable housing project that's going to provide 95 units toward your affordable housing obligation. That money is being collected through payments in lieu of creating affordable housing at the 1 Sunset Avenue, aka Spectrum 360 site. You're required to set aside 30% of your trust fund revenues for what's called affordability assistance. And the programs that we have in your plan and spending plan are a down payment assistance for any homeowner units that might come online as a result of future inclusionary projects, and the rest is what do you call it? I asked you this term last.
Assistance?
It's security deposit.
Okay.
I forgot this term last time too. Gosh. I haven't been a renter for a while. Security deposit assistance, which in both cases, the funds are paid back into the trust fund after a certain amount of time. And there's a cap of 20% of the trust fund revenues can be spent on administrative spending, and that's essentially paying myself, Jamie, anyone else who is involved in the implementation of your housing plan for their fees. You can only spend 20% to basically offset our fees. So this is required to be adopted by the Township Council. It's required to show that by the end of the third round, which is June 30, 2025, all funds will be expended. There's a statutory requirement that any revenues received have to be spent within 4 years of the date of receiving it. So you're not like stockpiling funds for paying for a big project in a future round. So that's why at the end of the document, it says that there's gonna be $0 left on July 1st, 2025.
And we have exhausted that 20% that we're allowed to spend on.
You have,
administrative
yes,
expenses.
that's right. Yeah.
Any questions on this, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Actually, I have several. So actually, just hitting on that point with the 20%, maybe our administration knows this or not. Have we actually gone over that 20% already?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So what is the plan? I mean, my count was that we were at about, since this started back in 2015, we're at almost $500,000 in administrative fees and lawyers' fees. I mean, this has been a very long process for the township, way before I got elected. So is there, what happens if now that we're over, how does that get worked out?
If you go over, then it becomes a borough or a township obligation. However, I will tell you, the third round was very unique in how it arose and how it had to be dealt with. We're not in that position again, so I would not ever expect you to encounter the same level of administrative costs that you faced with respect to the third round when it comes to the fourth round and future rounds.
Yeah, let's hope not. So, and this.
I'll also add that I don't think I've ever encountered a town that was within the 20% because of what Jamie said.
Yep. So, one of the last elements on so I don't want to steal your thunder on the last element, but you know, we are required to fund the entire spending plan, correct? And so when we're looking, I'm looking at page 4 of the spending plan, the chart that says how much revenue is coming in. And I'm reading this to say that we expect to have 3.3 million coming in as revenue.
Yeah, so that includes existing, that 3.3 million, like 235,000 of that includes is the balance as of September of 2022. And then 3.25 million is coming from the Spectrum project. And the rest of it is projected development fees based on the revenues that you've collected from residential development fees in the past, and also potential non-residential development fees coming in, as well as interest and what have you.
Okay, so, and I'm sorry, on the printout that I have, the 235 was very, very light.
Yeah.
I may have missed that. So does that get added into the 3.3?
That's included in the 3.3.
Oh, it's included in the 3.3.
Yeah.
So our plan is to spend 3.5. So does that mean we're about 200,000 short?
No, you're not short. I've already lost track of that page.
But as Dan said, that's projected.
Okay.
So that's what, you theoretically, a commercial project, a non-residential project could come along and it could generate, because of the calculation of the development fee, it could generate $450,000 development fee.
Sure.
And so then you would be over. Nothing comes in down the road at all, then you just are not collecting those that were projected.
Yeah.
And so if you don't collect it, obviously you don't have to spend it.
Okay.
But it's
And
not,
the
it's not,
3.3 doesn't include it.
Oh, okay.
I just was doing that math here.
but it's not something you would need to fund. It's not
Okay.
a situation where if those fees are not collected that were anticipated,
Yeah.
that now the borough needs to, or township needs to write a check to make up the difference.
Okay.
It's an estimated number because that's what the regulations require as to how it be handled. Obviously, if it's not collected, it's not spent, and there's no funding requirement on behalf of the township itself.
So the 3.5 million that we're spending in chart number 5 is just an estimate. So
That's
if
right.
we don't
Correct.
collect.
If you don't collect that much, you're not obligated to do it. Some towns will adopt an updated spending plan if there's a substantial change in situation, but it's not something that you have to do unless for whatever reason it's going to be required by the court, which I don't see happening. It shouldn't happen, especially because in this case, you already have more than enough money to pay for the rehabilitation program and presumably you're going to get the $3.25 million from Sunset, and that is just going toward your payment toward your bonds. So this is in a situation where you have a project that you still have to pay money towards to have it happen. You don't have to worry about. You are required, I guess I'll jump ahead now. You are tonight adopting a resolution of intent to fund that essentially says that if for whatever reason, if you don't have enough affordable housing trust fund money to implement your program, that you'll bond to do that. But you're not in a situation where you have to do that. You're ahead of the game, so you don't have to worry about bonding further for your third round obligation.
Okay, thank you. That was the essence of my question.
Are you just following up on the administrative expenditures. So obviously I see here we have administrative expenditures to date of about 168K. The cap is about 139K. So we are over there. I'm assuming that this is a restricted group of administrative expenditures that are payable out of this fund, not the full $500,000 that was mentioned earlier. But what I'm curious about is on a go forward basis. So let's assume that we do start bringing revenue into this trust fund. Are we able to use 20% of go forward revenue to pay for ongoing administrative expenses within affordable housing? Is this a one-time deal, or how does that work?
If you get to the point where you're collecting so much in development fees that you're 20% of your total past and projected fees or exceed the 168 that you've spent, it increases the amount that you're able to pay toward professional fees. If that makes sense. At this point, if you suddenly receive a ton of development fees, you'd be allowed to spend some of it to your administrative fees, as long as the amount that you've received exceeds the amount that you've already spent.
Okay. Any other questions on this element?
Okay, and the last piece is the affirmative marketing plan. What that is also a required plan, which states how the administrative agent, Laura, will and the administrative agents that may be appointed by the developers of these major projects, because sometimes they will appoint their own, are required to advertise the availability of these units to eligible households. Their settlement agreement required that the township had to market to specific public interest agencies, including the NAACP or several branches of the NAACP, Latino Action Network, and certain others. There's requirements that the documents be application forms be placed in certain public buildings, that certain employers and news media are I guess asked to advertise these units. So the affirmative marketing plan, as you have it, should include a resolution that sort of gives a verbal breakdown of what the affirmative marketing plan is going to do, and then there's this kind of a grid format that actually identifies all of the newspapers and radio stations and organizations that are going to be marketed to. So Mr. Tamburo, you were asking me about, I assume, language in the resolution.
Yes,
So if there's what page did you say that was on in the resolution?
it's on the second page of the resolution.
Okay, second page of the resolution, under what number?
It's F1.
F1, the primary marketing shall take the form of.
The below newspapers, but they're not below newspapers.
Okay, so what I would say is in the adopted version of this resolution, it should say something to the effect of in the newspapers identified in the grid form of the affirmative marketing plan, because that is where they are identified. And if there's any other instances where it says below, it should just refer to this grid form. I prefer this grid form. Sometimes Fair Share Housing Center and the special masters like to see this resolution form, so I did a hybrid. So avoid driving myself nuts. That might have actually backfired.
If I may, Justin, in F3, it kind of.
Yeah, it says all newspaper articles, et cetera, in the grid form attached to it, but there's no attachment, so just want to make sure that if we're going to pass a resolution, that it's accurate.
May I have a point of order, please? Point of order, Mayor.
Good.
Just, I'm noticing that in the appendix 8, in the plan itself, the resolution, once adopted, will be in the beginning of that appendix of the affirmative action plan, affirmative marketing plan,
It will be included in the,
and the grid is following.
yes.
So my apologies, I did not recognize that when I sent out the resolution.
Oh, I see. You guys
It
didn't
does
get the
say
grid
smart
form.
letter.
That's, I apologize for not
That-
double checking on that.
But that does exist.
It does exist. It's in the draft of the housing plan that is online. So it's and that was distributed to everybody. So it's a public document for whatever that's worth.
Councilman, do you see any need for language changes, or do you find this successful as drafted? Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, I just wanted to make the point, Mayor, that we had gotten the grid form before, and maybe even to discuss that previous meeting, certainly, but it wasn't, there were just so many documents, so I appreciate the clarification.
That's fine.
And the clerk's clarification about what's in here and what's in process. Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Did you we make it through all of these?
I think the only other thing, so we talked about the resolution of intent to fund. I don't think I need to restate it unless you want more clarification on that. The only other thing on my list is just to say next steps after tonight. So tonight we're hopefully going to adopt everything, including the ordinance and the resolutions. Once we've received the executed resolutions, we'll package everything. We'll send it to the special master, the Fair Share Housing Center, the court. I think Jennifer and I will coordinate, make sure that we send the copies to the county and the state that would be required for a master plan. Then we will hopefully be solid until round 4.
Excellent. Okay. Before I call for public comment, Mr. Biarki, do you have anything else?
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, please read a public comment statement. I'm going to restrict public comment to affordable housing matters. I think that's section.
Public wishing to speak on this affordable housing matter, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. If you're in person, you may raise your hand. Once you're recognized in person, you may approach the lectern and clearly state only your name and township of residence for the record. You are not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the Township's YouTube channel and the addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. We'll have 4 minutes to address the council on this matter only. There'll be no cross dialogue during this portion. After everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council may address your comments and or questions.
We on the road. I do see a hand raised.
Yes, good evening. Kevin Ryan, Verona, New Jersey. Just a quick question. If all this is implemented, well, it's not specifically in the ordinance, will you need to establish an ongoing town mechanism to ensure compliance with the monetary stipulations for affordable housing? And in other words, is the town going to have to wind up setting up another, almost like a rent control board to ensure that, the people who are being let in actually comply? And more importantly, when vacancies exist and someone else goes in, how is that going to be monitored? Thank you.
I'll Right, Mr. Fossick back up, and I believe this might fall under the role of the administrative agent.
Mayor and Council, yes, if I may, if I understand the question correctly, that's the purpose for having an administrative agent. Is a family or an individual, whatever the case may be, must be certified as an affordable housing household for the given unit. So they must qualify not only financially, they have to qualify for the bedroom size, those types of issues. And then there's a recertification process every year. And the owner of the property where the rental unit is located pays a recertification fee for the services which are being provided by the administrative agent in ensuring compliance.
Any kind of follow-up on that?
I actually have a question. I know in the past, and we talked about this, should someone move in and they got a raise and their income goes above the level, then they pay market rate for the apartment, correct?
Yes, they would pay market rate. We don't have the ability to evict simply because you are no longer qualified as an affordable housing household, but you would also no longer qualify to pay affordable housing set rental levels. You would pay whatever the market rate is for that property.
But my question is, how long does that person, couple, family, how long are they allowed to stay in that apartment? Indefinitely?
If they're paying rent,
So in essence, you could say we're gonna build these 95 apartments, and if people move in and they get raises at work, over time, 50% of them could actually be going to affordable housing.
since it's an affordable only property, I would presume that those leases will have specific language in them, and the leases will have to be approved again by your affordable housing agent, administrative agent. And I would presume that they will have language addressing those issues because it's an affordable only property.
And the income threshold will vary with time. I'm assuming according to economic condition. And do people requalify under the thresholds as adjusted?
Yes, there's an annual analysis that provides, and that's even by region. So there's not one level set for the entirety of the state of New Jersey. They're by region.
Any further public comment either in the room or on Zoom? Please. Just your name and your city of residence, please.
Ryan Bamba, Verona. It might have been said in the pamphlet, just out of curiosity, who is, I know we have a lot of media that we're going to mention it to, all the newspapers and radio sources, who's eligible to move into these units?
Okay.
Again, eligibility is based on various factors, which include income level, most importantly, income level and asset level. So I don't have the income levels on me at the moment, but there are ranges, and it's based upon household size. And then there's very low, and moderate.
It's a team.
Yes.
So
There's a new numbers.
yeah, these are the 2023 affordable housing numbers. So you're in Essex County, of course, which is region 2. So the median level of one person would be 86,680. That could go up to a 4-person would be 123,829. A moderate would go at 69,344. A 4-person household would be $99,063. A low would be 43,340 for a 1-person household. A 4-person would be 61,914. And again, this goes all the way to 8, up to 8+. So I'm just kind of picking one at the front, one at the back. And then a very low would be $26,004 for a 1-person and $37,149 for a 4-person.
And this is kind of in line. One of the things that we've been saying very often is that the median and medium and low income levels within this, that we probably all know someone who might qualify for it. Those are they are reflective of a lot of jobs in the area.
Oh, certainly. And a lot of times the people that benefit from these programs, take advantage of these programs, are public employees, whether it be teachers starting out, police officers starting out, that service municipalities where simply because of where we're located geographically, the cost of living is just a higher cost of living due to the housing market than it is for outlying areas. So that cuts down on commute time, those types of things.
And then, of course, there is going to be more demand for these units than there are units to offer. So aside from income and assets, what are the remaining factors?
What happens is there's a lottery.
Right.
So when the 95 unit property comes online, there'll be a lottery. So your administrative agent will probably stab me for telling this publicly, but there will be, for those 95 units, you would expect to receive thousands of applications, literally thousands. And then it goes through, there's a lottery, numbers are drawn, takes the first set of numbers, it goes through, certifies those selected numbered individuals, and assuming they meet certification, then they would be contacted to, once they're formally certified, they'd be contacted after the lottery, they're drawn, then once they come in and they're formally certified, then they would be offered the unit. And if they take the unit, they take the unit. If they don't, ultimately you just keep going until the property is completely populated.
Yes, Deputy Mayor?
So I just want to clarify though, that so we're in region 2, which is, I'm looking at this chart where it's Essex and Union, Morris and Warren.
Yes.
So when the lottery, is it only residents who currently reside in the areas, or they can apply from anywhere, or?
There could be priorities given for areas, but generally it's open up to the public. They would not, technically need to be a resident of the state. Anybody that applies, if you qualify, if you're able to be certified as an affordable housing household, you can be placed in the unit.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, the same gentleman I have to ask the council, the same gentleman who just asked a question, would like to come up again. Okay. No worries. All right, anyone else from the public? Okay, I'll now close public comment on this. Any general council discussion on this before we go through these one at a time? Approvals? Okay. Great. So then we will start with ordinance 2023-18. Madam Clerk, we can read the title of the ordinance in the record.
Sorry, I'm getting right in front of me. Repealing Article 19 of Chapter 150 of the Code of the Township in its entirety and replacing with a new Article 19 affordable housing.
Okay, can somebody please move the ordinance?
So moved.
Moved by Deputy Mayor McGrath, seconded by Councilman McAvoy. Now is the time for a public hearing on ordinance 2023-18. Madam Clerk, please read the public portion statement for the ordinance.
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter only, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in phone, you may press *9. If you're in person, you may raise your hand. Once you're recognized in person, you may push the lectern. Online, once you're unmuted, please clearly state only your name and township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. You'll have 4 minutes to address the council, and there'll be no cross dialogue during this public portion. After everyone wishing to speak has been heard, council may address your comments and or questions.
Thank you. Are we open to public comment? And this is restricted to this ordinance only. 2 more seconds. Last call. Seeing none, I will now close public hearing on this ordinance. Any council discussion on the ordinance? No? Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Holland? Yes. Councilman Tamburo?
Yes.
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGrath?
Yes.
Mayor Roman?
Yes.
Mayor Ordinance 2023-18 passes 5-0 and will be published according to law. Any other items that Mr. Halpern stated?
Okay. Does anyone have any objection to voting on the resolutions as a group? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion for resolutions, section E, B through E?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Tamburo, seconded by Deputy Mayor McGrath. We already did public comment on this, just any council comment on any of the resolutions. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Holland? Yeah. Councilman Tamburo?
Yes.
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGrath?
Yes.
Mayor Roman?
Yes.
Mayor, resolutions EB through E1E will be numbered 119, 120, 121, 122 in the order that they're listed on the agenda.
Very much. I'd like to thank our professionals for all their hard work on this, the planning board for their time spent in the review, township manager and all of his staff for getting us through this process. And with, I think it's going to be a very positive outcome for Verona. So thank you everyone for all of your hard work on this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, John.
Okay, back to you for the article.
Thank you, Mayor. I jump back to my regular agenda, yes. And thank you for the breakdown vacation, so I was trying to catch up on this year. Item number 4, the affordable housing, we just completed that. The townships, item number 3, there's an ordinance for discussion and introduction potentially for restructure of DPW building grounds in the deputy manager position. Item number 5, item number 6, that your court transition went very smoothly. It is already moved. Now your departments are satisfied with the transition, and I'll continue to monitor with the 3 communities. And then number 4, number 5, animal control is an issue. We are in an animal control program for 3 communities or 5 communities, and we'll be looking at mutual approach to animal control for all communities. That may be following the reviews and outreach to the shared communities, and then advertising for a shared program. It may prove to be productive, and we'll look into that. And I will brief the council as it moves along. I'm still waiting for, and I will be following up going back from vacation from the firm New Gen Strategies for the rate study information they're supposed to provide to us. And I will follow up on that before this week is out, because I didn't see that in my pile of emails that came in. Everett Field, the engineers have done extensive review of the property, including the surveys that are needed for council's information and the public's information. We'll be reviewing that with staff, and part of the 501c3 that we've adopted, which would be Friends of the Parks Verona Township Recreation and Parks. We'll be looking at a number of elements to fund that project as we move along, include matches to the township's funding. So those elements will be from the 501c3 funding, open space, county grants that are available, and the general grant program that we have. All of those components will be in motion now that we have an idea of what we're looking at, and then I'll be briefing the council on how we're doing. That's why it's on the calendar for 2024. I don't want to come in with here's the whole ticket. We need to address it at the staff level first to see the green elements, the drainage really impacting that property. That was very preliminary at this stage.
I would tend to agree, particularly with everything else that's on our plate for the back half of this year, that let's be realistic.
Exactly. Thank you. The water plant is partially under review already by Boswell Engineering and their subsidiary firms, looking at what we may have to do with the plant, the sewage treatment. That's referring to that. And the water proposals are being reviewed. As soon as I get the New Gen proposals, we'll be able to look at those assets and what we're going to be doing in the future going forward. PFAS is well in the way. You've been getting regular reports from the Jacobs firm, and from those meetings that we've been having, that's moving very well. We're still dealing with these on Green Acres, and I did see the comments from the council on the building that those comments are being looked at relative to the cost of what we may or may not be able to do. And that's then one of the items, number 17 on here, is that this council continued discussion for your planner.
Okay.
So I leave that in your hands. One of the elements you'll be looking at in 2024-25 is a multi-year plan for your downtown streetscape redesign.
Mhm.
I'll be picking that up. It's towards the latter part of 24, but you need to address that. And that may be the planner you select to be able to do a combination of things for you.
Do we want to find time for an agenda item specifically to go through planner items? And I think that's, we need to have it on our calendar for a specific date and actually, make sure that we're ready and have that discussion.
Yeah,
So,
I thought we were gonna do some special meetings so that we can meet some planners.
yeah, that would be it.
Okay, I will ask the clerk in my Wednesday morning meetings to start working on that for you.
Yeah. And so do we have, Mr. Diarco, I know you asked us all to submit which firms we wanted to speak to. Do you have a clear understanding of which firms, or do we need to look at that list again?
You need to look at this, yeah, I previously went out, and if there's any other firms, please add them. So you have a full scope of.
We'll do. All right, do you have any other items?
No, sir.
Okay, we need to welcome. Oh, sorry. Let's go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I do have a question. Can we address the pickleball court, and why that ordinance was not, for a second
Thank you.
reading?
Yeah. This dates back, like I said, the original meetings I had with your resident pickleball players and difficulties that you had with pickleball courts. And at the same time, I was looking at the concerns that were given to me relative to the parking at the pool. So my initial memos to the council kind of addressed the concerns of the resident pickleball players, that group that plays there. And the information I had on the parking at the pool, which was insufficient parking. When you start ramping up your pool, you don't have enough parking there, parking sidelines and what else. So part of the discussion was, would we save if I move the pickleball courts to the side parking lot and free up that center parking lot between the two that you have, would it increase parking for pool patrons? And the answer was yes, you increased parking by another 47 spaces. The pickleball resident group, the players were reasonably happy with the plan. The plan also included the potential of additional courts. I hate to use that term, the prisoners pond, I guess it's referred
That's
to.
fine, yes.
Okay, thank you. And the property adjacent to it, which is county property, and I'm talking to the county about getting that property through the county building pickleball courts, or rebuilding additional pickleball courts there, which gives you two venues for them to play on. Your pool, I'm enormously optimistic that your pool membership is going to grow just with the wet park. I was there to observe your patrons using it. It's exciting, to say the least. And I seriously think that you're going to see, and with the public information officer that's coming in, Steve and I meet with her, your advertising on those positive things you're doing in the township is going to be really ramped up.
This is,
I'd love to use a better phrase, but seriously, I think you're going to see more membership at that pool, which is only going to create more parking issues for you.
and this has been kind of one of our goals with our recreational facilities in general, is to sort of reintroduce them and introduce them to, we know we have new residents, is to make them realize where every playground, sport court, everything that we have to offer should be, mapped for them.
Steve has undertaken that study with a professional that was looking at all of the recreation programs, all of our facilities. And that will play into in working with the public information office. As you know, I'm taking all that, which deck, that's why we employed the person, so we do more positive outreach to the residents on a whole array of responsibilities we have, including promoting what we do have as a township. And every time we pass ordinances, we need to get information out to the public we just needed to do a better job, and I think that position will do that for you. So back to the pickleball, I think it would be a positive move. There is concerns. I did field a couple of questions from neighboring communities relative to that pickleball court. Throw barriers, evergreen trees, and those kind of things. But there are still discussions on the best places to do this. I still think the adjacent to the pool and that parking lot gives us more parking spaces. Steve and I have been discussing the potential of another location that we have to maybe put the pickleball courts there, but that kind of discussion is somewhat premature to shift completely, and I'm not sure if that impacts the residential community also. In short.
Thank you. So I serve as the recreation committee liaison, and I will say that the recreation committee has been extraordinarily supportive moving forward with pickleball courts in this community. So it's very disappointing to see it delayed again. And it's also disappointing to have that come moments after you spoke about delaying the Everett. Because you and I met with representatives of PB, talk about it, and originally the concept was engineering designs this year and move forward with the project next year. Now we're talking about engineering plans.
We have the engineering designs.
We do.
I do. Those are preliminary. I'm looking at the costs for one, which I need to discuss in with the council before I move forward. And I just looked at them and I need to digest that whole piece. On top of that, I need to literally get the community group involved, which they said they would.
Yes.
In fundraising, and also our public information officer, the title, involved in advertising and promoting it so that we get corporations and.
And I do appreciate all. As you know, on behalf of the Recreation Advisory. Tremendous amount of cynicism about our ability. I think what you'll see is that we have more members at the pool than we've had in prior years. And I've only heard positive things about it. It took years and years and years to get that. We have a playground and we've had commitment and we've had equipment sitting in a shed for a number of years and we haven't executed on that playground yet. I think there's just this cynicism, and it exists even in that committee, that when the township administration is making promises about these recreation facilities, that we're not following through on it. And so, you know, I'm on that committee. I take my children to these fields. I'm engaged, I'm a pool member, and it's very hard for me to answer constituents about why these things take so long. So I just wanted to voice that to you. I'm not asking you to answer any questions about it because I do hear you. But, you know, we've been hearing about the Friends of Verona Parks for many, many months now. And the last I heard is it still isn't a 501c3 yet, even though fundraising opportunities have even been done for it. So we need to kind of complete some of these tasks so that we can move forward with them. And I appreciate the PIO is going to help Mr. Neal, and Mr. Neal is going to be more engaged in recreation, but more needs to be done there, and it needs to be consistent because we do have a vibrant pickleball community. We do have a huge VBSL program that uses these fields, and there's a lot of interest. Thank you.
And you know, I'll say that's very fair. You know, there are two things that separate out. Sometimes there's projects that we can't pay for right away because they're very expensive, and then sometimes there's projects that we just don't execute. And the second class of them, I think, are almost the more frustrating ones, because again, when we have something teed up and then just, you know, roadblock after roadblock after roadblock shows up. And I've always kind of been a fan of doing the things you say you're going to do, and, I know that we have a ton of projects on our plate. And so it's either one of two things. We either have to be more realistic about the project load that we're able to execute with the resources we need to have, or we need to pace ourselves more, or we need to find the roadblocks next projects. But I do tend to agree with the councilwoman that we cannot simply, have the answer to everyone being, okay, well, later on it,
I candidly, I don't have a leader.
Yeah.
I specifically knew your projects have been moving very
Right.
well. Some faster than others. Your affordable housing is taking a lot of professional time, and we've gotten that out of the way, and you will wave up. The pool should be a great example of we shut the pool down last year, and the next day we're in construction. The engineers we just put on for Everett Field this year, Negley Engineering. I came back from vacation. This is June. The entire layout designs are there. It would be next, the preparing the bid specs, and I need to meet with the council in closed session, so or it becomes a public document, and I have all intentions of moving with that. Hopefully and I've said before, I'd love to be out to bid before the end of the year and get that done. I've met with the engineers over that playground that was sitting for God knows how many years, and unfortunately, the designs had a number of floors in them, which our township engineers, Boswell Engineering, has addressed all of those, and I met with them and told them I need to go out to bid on this project and get it done. I feel your pain.
Right.
And
This is
we're
not-
working on all of those at the same time. Your wells are now ahead of schedule, which is really good for us. And I know it's tough for the public to see some of this happening, but my recommendation on the pickleball was still the same. It didn't change. I don't know if the council has changed. I was gone, but it's like I'm sorry. But that's in place, and the basic information I gave you a few months ago relative to, I think, the plus of additional parking is there for you. The excitement at your wet park at the pool was more than I expected, when I went there to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking you're gonna have more of a crush for parking. And what the council wants to do.
Right, and this is more of an organization, this is a long-term organizational challenge, this is not a
Yes.
shot at you. We've just always kind of had this, where we, we want to deliver all this stuff to our residents. We're still a small town with only so much machinery to work with.
And you're faced with your bigger, not that they're all important, but you're dealing with your old public safety complexes that you're dealing with police, fire, and rescue.
I want to, Councilman McAvoy jump in here.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think a large, part of our problem is we have to be honest with our constituents. We can't just say yes to everything. There's a lot of fluff here. We just spent $1.8 million at the pool. So I don't know, we're gonna spend another $500,000 on a playground at the community center. We talk about our wells, what's more important? Do we put our money towards our wells, or we put our money towards all of our rec facilities? We spent $12 million on fields. So we have these things all in queue. I think we really have to sit down and prioritize these. At Everett Field, we did tell the public that we were going to get on it and we were going to do it right away. I don't think we should have done that. We should have just been realistic. There's other issues there I want to talk about. Design of that field. We haven't seen a plan for it. This started with pickleball. The reason it was pulled from tonight, as Deputy Mayor asked, why was it pulled? It shouldn't have been on tonight because we never passed it in first reading, so it shouldn't have been on for second reading tonight. So we had to pull it off the ordinance. We're talking about it, so I was going to bring it up in new business, so we discuss it again. When it comes to that, I kind of was upset because I got phone calls from residents that said, "Why are you voting against the pickleball court?" We didn't vote against them so people can hear this. There was no vote on it. Joe, you mentioned that the pickleball players saw a plan and they were happy with the plan. We as a council, I don't think have seen a plan. I haven't seen it. And that was one thing we asked at the last meeting 3 weeks ago to see a plan for this. And we've yet to see it. I brought up at the last meeting where we were, which I just found out at the last meeting. We want to move it down to where the other parking lot, the lower parking lot is. If the pool's going to be busier and the splash pad is for those who need access, then we're taking away parking closer to the entrance. So we should rethink that. Is that a good move to take parking down there away from people that want to go to the pool? My other point last week was that's county property. So did we go back to the county and talk to the county?
Have a meeting with the county. Do you have your parking lot on the county property already?
Yes, they gave us permission to put it there.
Right, so meeting with the county, we're just gonna reuse it, repurpose it.
Okay.
And that was one of the meetings that was happening.
So then my other question from someone who called me is, we're redoing the pickleball courts. Are we taking away tennis courts or are we building tennis courts? And I didn't have the answer for that. I haven't seen a plan. So my question, since it came up tonight, we're talking about moving stuff to the prisoners pond up near Lynn Drive area.
That's in discussion with the county and
Okay.
for that, yeah.
All right. I mean, are we taking that upper parking lot? If we're doing that, then that's a huge mistake because we're very limited on parking up there. So I think these things, we really have to
We do need to see the concept.
be more
Yeah.
open about this and communicate to the council so that our constituents aren't calling us, and yelling at us about voting the wrong way when we haven't even voted.
So I just on that point though, I believe we did vote to introduce at the last meeting. There was conversation about having further discussion.
Introduce the ordinance?
Yes,
We absolutely did not,
okay.
because they had to get back to the county to see if we could even put.
There was,
change the land.
I believe there was a vote. to-
Yeah, I just rewatched the video just because I was confused as well. We absolutely voted. So we did vote to.
We voted to introduce it, but were we planning on having second hearing after we had that?
Yes,
discussion?
It was to have further discussion.
Yeah.
so
And
my
Christine
understanding-
announced the hearing date. Sorry, Councilwoman.
Sorry,
If I just may say one thing, I just
And
wanted
then it
to,
would have been under the stipulation that we saw plans on all this, and we haven't seen anything on it.
Sorry, I'm gonna jump in on that too. The reason this all came up too with the last meeting was that bond ordinance was for the design. So we don't have any funding in
Yeah.
place to develop the designs right now to start to analyze it. So that's all the pieces need to
And-
fall in place.
I think that, some of the concerns, at least my concern with the design proposal was I didn't want us to spend money on a design for a project without sort of large scale costing. And some sort of, understanding the concept a little bit better, because if, for example, we design relocating the pickleball courts, then it turns out that it's out of our ability to fund that relocation. Then we have to go back and do a design for a rebuild in place. If we chose to do that, then we've wasted the money on the first round of design. So I feel like we kind of need to know what we're getting into a little bit. This may or may not involve consultants and outside people. This may be something where we need to kind of just come up with some broad stroke costs. Total relocation of it to over here might cost X, rebuild in place might cost Y, here's the other opportunities. And then that way, I'd really like when we go out to design that's as close as possible to the designs that become, the actual project. I just don't want to spend, $70,000 or whatever it is of grant money on a design that we end up not using because we can't afford to build it.
And location.
Right, exactly.
I just want to say, I want to, this was actually a very illuminating conversation, and it just highlights how we really need to sit down and agree upon priorities. And I know Councilman Tamboro and I talked about that last week, that we really do need to have a prioritization session, because I think for a lot of parents that use the recreation facilities and residents who use the recreation facilities, we have a bond ordinance on tonight to fund, an ambulance and police cars, and we have to prioritize a lot of things for first responders. It's important. Those costs keep going up, and what's getting squeezed out is our maintenance and keeping up with recreation. We have other towns that do seem to manage to open these beautiful pickleball courts, and frankly, our people are playing on, our courts were so badly damaged, our tennis courts, that we had to blacktop over them, and they're basically playing in the equivalent of a parking lot. So I know that this town invested significantly in fields years ago, but we needed to keep up with other recreation investments. And again, it's hard. The town invested in the library, which we also needed. We have to buy all of these ambulances and We had to buy a fire truck, and yes, we had to deal with the water, but some of that, let's remember, is different pockets of money. So the water wells is a totally different pocket, it's its own utility, so we don't need to mix apples and oranges. But it goes back to prioritization. I think maybe our council would be well served in the start of our new 2-year term to sit down and have that meeting, and I think it would be worthwhile.
Councilman?
Thank you. I appreciate the Deputy Mayor wanting to move forward with that. I know I've had some conversations with the other council members about the same, so I look forward to that. And it's something that we had a greater conversation about strategic planning, and then we're kind of waiting for the master plan to be done. That's something I definitely want to get back to. I think that there's nobody at this dais who wouldn't want pickleball courts. And I know, like, the idea of it, I've been in contact with a lot of the folks that are doing it. I'm fully in support of the idea of them. The question that we had, and a couple of people that reached out that I answered, is we had to hold that resolution because we were going to spend $79,000 to have a design on property that we didn't have permission to put a design on, right, with the county property on the parking lot. And we had a couple other questions that we needed the administration to get back. Like everything else in municipal government, there's an opportunity cost associated with any project we do. We can borrow a very limited amount of money because our borrowing, despite the fact that we have the ability to borrow significant sums of money, we have to budget in the operating budget every year to pay back our debt service. And when we are constrained by tax caps that don't allow for unlimited repayment of debt service, we fall into a position that we have to decide and make priorities, which is why the town manager came up with the excellent idea of moving the Everett Field project toward a nonprofit to be able to harness some grant money and things in that way. I think that I would give the manager credit and Mr. Neal for thinking outside the box on a lot of these things. And that's why Everett is moving in one direction. As somebody who does incorporations of 501c3s as a profession, it takes a while to get paperwork through the state and United States government, and to get all that back and to have your meetings and to approve all your articles and so on. So I think we're in one of the circumstances. Certainly I would like to see more efficiency in how we do it. But at the same point, we need to all have reasonable expectations moving forward. We have a lot of projects before it. The only thing that we're tending to learn in municipal government is everything is a 7-figure, almost everything has a 7-figure cost. At this point, it starts at $1 million. And unfortunately, because of the way that our bidding process works and things like that, we have to choose the lowest responsible bidder. Sometimes that comes with not being able to do a project on the exact timeline that we want. So there's some give and take on that, but I appreciate my fellow council members' comments. I have heard the same thing. And I think we're all in support of pickleball courts. The question is, what is the cost going to be? What is the timeline of that going to be? Where are they going to be? And they're on target for us to move forward, but we do have to contextualize that within all of the other wants and needs that are affecting our decision making.
And then I'll just sort of add one thing on that. You did bring up kind of the breadth of all the projects that we need to work on. There was some discussion of water and sewer being a different bucket. I've never really mentally separated water and sewer out too far away from township capital projects, simply because for the most part, the same people that pay property taxes pay water and sewer bills. There are some more infrastructure funding opportunities available for things like that, and some other money that we can draw upon and other financing sources, but very frequently it just still ends up being a cost to residents anyway as well. So when we think about our project scope and what we're able to finance, what we're able to execute, it spreads across everything that we do: emergency services, facilities, roadways, infrastructure, recreation projects, municipal buildings. At the end of the day, the taxpayer the resident is still paying for a lot of these things. But I kind of agree that we need a broad scope, some strategic planning, some goals as to a calendar as to when we want to launch and execute projects, and kind of see this all on one table. So again, we manage expectations and we tell people what we realistically think we're able to do. And I kind of agree that that needs to be its own discussion at some point in time in the near future as to what our priorities are and what our timing is that we can do. Anyone else?
I just want to add that then since we have so many ones, we really need to look at how we expand our chat space. And that gets back to picking the planner, rezoning, thinking about how we can generate new redevelopment in town. Looking at our fees, like if the cost pressures are such, let's bring in more money and find ways on not, so that we can do all this not on the backs of the taxpayer. And so we really need to expand our revenue generation and really think about how to do that.
Right, again, within the context of what the community's desires are as expressed through the master planning process.
Yeah.
So, all right, anyone else, anything else? I believe we were before Mr. Neal's report, and just for kind of, just so that the public's aware, since we have a large audience here this evening, in between items F and G on your agenda, after all the council members' reports, we'll have a general public comment session on any matter. We've been doing that. It's simply not in our ordained sequence of business, so it doesn't appear on the agenda. So once we finish up with Mr. Neal's reports, then the other 4 council members' reports, then anyone who wants to come up and make a general public comment would be welcome to do so. So Mr. Neal, do you have a report for us this evening?
Good evening. I know there's a lot. I did submit you my report, but I do want to touch on a few items. Just to note, we did award and give notice to proceed on our CDBG ADA curb ramp project, which is various curb cuts around town. So that should be starting in the next week or two. The storm drain maintenance program, I know there's a couple questions on that. Montana Construction was awarded a contract at the last meeting to really work on our storm drain and catch basin maintenance program. They actually did begin work. We have it broken down by the Oak Ridge section, which is basically Lakeside Ave and up on the south side of Bloomfield Avenue. So they have started doing that, inspecting, and then, cleaning and offering any maintenance rehab that needs to be done. Boswell, I do want to update a couple things. I received a couple updates also. We did receive the proposals for the Boston, Whitney, and Windermere and Douglas Place road paving projects. We do have 2 DOT grants for each project. And just to note, the Boston, Whitney, and Windermere project, that was a 2021 DOT grant for the 2022 year. We actually just have to, the plan is to not have the project completed by the end of this year, but actually awarded by the October deadline. So we do anticipate hitting that deadline, but construction would actually be in the spring of 2024.
Does that comply with the grant?
It does, yes.
Okay.
So I didn't have that piece until later this afternoon.
Okay.
Yep. And then Douglas Place is also planned for it. That's going to be a much quicker project, but planned for the spring of 2024. So hopefully we'll have all the plans in by September, out to bid by December, and then construction will start in the spring. Skipping down just real quick, the pool construction, the splash pad is complete. It has been in use. We did not meet our Memorial Day mark, but we did just miss by 2 days, but we are up and running, and it has been getting a lot of great use and a lot of great feedback on that. So we are hoping there's just a couple punch list items that we have to go through and finalize with the contractor, but we should be able to close that out pretty soon this month.
We'll still give you a win on that one.
All right. Thank you. That was a tough one. We had a couple hiccups towards the end there, but we're good. Road reconstruction, I kind of just touched on those. Anna Cypress, that project is done. The last piece of that is the tree planting, which I understand, I believe we just ordered all the trees, so those will be going in. We are going to follow up with all the residents. Obviously, we are in some dry times right now, so the Shade Tree has put together some nice postcards that we're going to get out to everybody in that area on proper tree care and water.
How many trees?
I want to say upwards of 80, but I don't quote me on that. I'd have to look that up.
Species as well, Steve. I've got a couple questions.
Yeah, I don't have those written down. We did change the species, which is why there's a little bit of a delay. There's a mix of 3 different species now. So we're trying to add a little variety in there and go with some natives also. Again, that was based on recommendations from the Shade Tree Commission. And that will be for all future projects as well. Skip down some upcoming events. We do have our Juneteenth flag raising ceremony on Monday, June 19th at 11 a.m. right out here in the Civic Center. The NAACP will be joining us, so anyone who's available, please come out and join us. We will be live streaming that event also. And our fireworks are going to be held on Friday, June 30th. Our rain date is Tuesday, I believe, July 5th or Wednesday, July 5th. But hopefully we won't need that. DJ, entertainment, dancing, music, everything starts at 7 p.m. up on Liberty Field. And I will just a quick update, Friends of Verona Parks. We are planning to have our first official board meeting on the 20th, June 20th, where we do have to go through and really pick apart the articles of association. That is the last piece before we could submit for the 501c3 paperwork. We do have our initial IRS paperwork, though, that is complete with the state, but we are just working on that last piece. Zoning office updates. We have our new zoning official did start on June 2nd. So we welcome him. He has caught up with our representatives from Boswell Engineering pretty quickly. So he's hit the ground running. Boswell will no longer be in that office covering us. And that's pretty much all I wanted to touch on, unless you had any other specific follow-ups.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Collins' question on the playground at the community center, the group date in September 1st. It's in the engineer's report.
Thank you.
I apologize.
You good? Anyone else? Right, thank you. Okay, moving on to council members' reports. Stephanie Mayor.
Great, thank you. I want to thank the Multicultural Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee, volunteers, and Steve Neal and all of the staff for the wonderful Pride celebration and flag raising that we had 2 Saturdays ago. I want to thank fellow Councilwoman Holland for joining me in the ceremony. It was actually a really great event. It was fun, filled with crafts and ice cream and some really great speeches. I want to thank, we were joined by Senator Carrata, Kristen Carrata from the 40th District, Assemblyman Christopher DePhillips, Councilman McAvoy was there for a bit, Essex County Liaison Reggie Bledsoe spoke, Verona Board of Ed President Pam Prisco was there. We had 2 wonderful high school students, B and Eva, who did the music, and Reverend Catherine from Holy Spirit gave us a speech as well. And it was just a really wonderful event. It was such a great example of our Verona values and diversity in our community. I also want to thank Christine Gould and the staff and everyone who participated in Memorial Day. I want to congratulate the Verona PBA on their very successful fundraiser on Saturday night. They raised funds for their charity work, which I am so grateful for them doing so. And while I didn't walk away a winner, the entire community was a winner at that event because it was incredibly successful. I want to recognize and thank our municipal clerk for all of her hard work on the primary election. I want to thank DPW and town officials for getting the pool open on Memorial Day. There was some behind the scenes drama and the DPW staff went above and beyond to get that baby pool open on Memorial Day weekend. I just want to thank them. And since we've already discussed, this project was 4 years long. It's one of the first projects I voted on when I was elected 4 years ago. Yesterday I saw, the splash pad in action, and it really was almost an emotional experience because to see how much the children were loving it. I was very proud to, play that role on that project in Verona. I already thanked the county for their food distribution at Hillwood, and I want to acknowledge BBSL volunteers that raised money as part of the Valerie Fund for Team Trey, which is for a young man in Cedar Grove who is battling cancer. In terms of committee update reports, the Multicultural Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee is working on disability awareness. They will partner in one of the upcoming summer concert series to have some tabling events and working with nonprofits to promote disability awareness, which I think is a great idea. They are looking and recruiting for 2 new high school volunteers because our high school volunteers have graduated or will be graduating next week. So any high school volunteers who are interested, they can apply on our website. Sustainable Verona Met, they are also looking for new committee members. If you're interested, please apply on our website. They are planning a solar open house in the fall. The Shade Tree Committee moved their meeting to Monday, April the 26th. And Mayor, in new business, I would like to discuss the League of Municipalities' efforts to do the energy tax receipts and the mayor signing on to their letter. So if we could have a conversation about that, that would be great. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Councilman McElroy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to thank everybody involved in the flag raising for Pride. I was happy I got it in between work. I was able to stop for a little bit and talk with some people there, but they didn't see the flag raising because I had to leave, but it was nice to see a lot of people there. I would also like to thank everybody who was involved in the parade this year. It seemed like it's usually a weekend where people go away, but it seemed like there was a larger crowd along the streets, and it was nice to see everybody coming out. The Verona High School band, the police, fire, rescue, DPW. It really is a community event, and it brings all of our workers out, and they do a great job keeping everybody safe on that day. The Historic Preservation Commission has a meeting this Thursday at 7 o'clock at the community center. They are still working on getting people to designate their house as historic landmark. We had our first a month ago, brought before the council and approved, and we're looking at 2 others. And then once we move forward with our zoning ordinance, we're hoping to create the historic districts and put that into our zoning ordinance also. So the commission spent a lot of work on that, and they spent a lot of time over the years. So it was a true accomplishment to get this one house up on 11 Cole Road to the owners came forth and did it. And it was a very nice accomplishment for the Historic Preservation Commission. And lastly, I would like to congratulate Verona Hillbillies Wrestling, 2nd through 8th grade, for being the Suburban League champs for the first time. And I would like to thank Frank Marrero as their coach. And I think there's about 9, 10, or 11 other volunteers that coach. So congratulations to all of them. And we have a banner up in the community center gym now. And that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to thank the township staff for the work on Memorial Day parade and ceremony. I think that our parade and ceremony are a perfect combination of celebratory and solemn. Mayor, I appreciate the words that you offered, which were both succinct and very meaningful. I did my customary beginning of the season walkthrough at the Verona pool. The day it opened, I wanted to thank DPW for working until about 6:30 that morning, and also for DPW Superintendent Chuck Molinaro, who came back after I brought a serious safety and security concern to the township administration. He came back that evening on Saturday and remediated it. So I thank him for that as well. I unfortunately had to miss the Pride ceremony and Valerie Fund as I was out of state on professional development for a week. However, I was very heartened to learn that Salt Lake City, Utah, that's one of the biggest Pride celebrations in the country. And it was there while I was. And so it was great to see and to talk to folks who were there for that. And I am going to admit that's not exactly what I expected in Salt Lake City, but my expectations were proven to be much better. Just remind everybody, Flag Day is June 14th, so please display your American flags. I wish everybody a very safe end of the school year as summer begins, and my congratulations to all of the graduates of Verona High School, those being promoted from 4th to 5th grade and 8th to 9th grade, and all of our college graduates who are celebrating as well. We have a lot to be proud of in our educational system here in Verona and beyond. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hall.
Thank you. I won't repeat the statements. I'm short on voice this evening, but I do want to acknowledge the extraordinary air quality event that we endured recently, and just remind residents that that probably won't be our only air quality emergency summer. So please take precautions as necessary. I also want to acknowledge that June is the start of hurricane season. So as much as our weather has been incredibly dry lately, there is the potential for storms that impact our community. And I appreciate the administration's that commenced this week to be cleaning out the storm drains and working on our compliance with our MS4 stormwater management permit. And so I hope that continues, but I do want to urge residents to not be complacent with dry weather, understanding that a very sudden and, quick thunderstorm in these dry conditions can lead to flash flooding. So please be aware as the summer months continue and take all appropriate precautions. That concludes my report.
Yeah, Madam Clerk. I'm going to call for a general public comment period. This is going to be on any matter, whether it's on the agenda or not. We are going to have other opportunities for comment on ordinances and before we pass our consent agenda, as well as another one at the end of the meeting. But since we have a large number of people don't want to stay all the way through the business, this would give them an opportunity. So our clerk will read a public comment statement.
For general,
General public.
anybody from the public wishing to speak on any matter? Please raise your hand and approach the lectern. If you're dialing in by phone, press star 9. I'm sorry. If you are attending via Zoom, you may press the raise hand button on your monitor. Once you're recognized, clearly state only your name, township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. You have 4 minutes to address the council. There'll be no cross dialogue during this here portion. And after everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council may address your comments and or questions.
And just very briefly before you begin, sir, I'll just reiterate that last little part, since there's might be a few people that haven't commented before. The way that we do public comment, it is not necessarily a Q&A section. You make a public comment, everybody makes their public comments, and then at the end of that comment session, then the council issues responses, just so that you know what to expect. So, sir, if you please give us your name and your city of residence, and then you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Jamal Mahmood, I'm here in Verona, New Jersey. So I'm here just representing the pickleball community. So thanks for bringing all up the pickleball business a little bit earlier. We were all interested to hear what you all had to say. I just wanted to give a quick comment of just, I guess, introduction of what we're doing to those of us that we haven't been able to formally meet, although of course I know a couple of you on the council and Mr. Diarco, of course, from our discussions earlier. But just a quick, I guess, summary of what the pickleball community is all about. We have a group, a Facebook group of about 300 Verona residents that's kind of sprung up very much overnight since the pandemic of people have picked this sport up. I and a lot of our neighbors, we play several times a week. There's lots of people who play at least weekly. In terms of places to play, you have to go to, you can pay for courts in West Orange. You can drive down to Chatham. There's a big place you can go to. If you have friends in Roseland, you can get on the court over there, but that's mostly for residents only. Same thing with Nutley and Little Falls and things like that. But by far the best place that we found to play is in Verona, and we've enjoyed it so much that even playing on the broken down tennis courts that we had before, we were bringing our broken down nets and setting them up, and we would work with the hand drawn lines on the tennis courts and things like that. So we helped beat those courts up pretty good until Mr. Diarco and his team did a great thing for us and helped us get to where we are now with the courts that we have. I agree. We understand that those are temporary courts. We agree, of course, we look forward to, hopefully getting better courts at some point. But I do want to thank Mr. Diarco and his team, because Councilwoman Holland's comments notwithstanding, I can't speak to all the recreation stuff that's kind of happened before and gotten caught up in committee, but we found your office to be very responsive to our requests, and we appreciate the speed with which things were handled, and we're hoping that continues. That being said, I appreciate also what I think it was Councilman McAvoy that was saying, and Councilman Timber also. We understand this is just one of many priorities that you guys all have to take up. So we're we're interested in pickleball, but we're also residents of the town, so we know you got to handle things with due prudence, and so we understand that this will come up when it comes up. That being said, you know, I and a couple of my fellow residents were interested very much in this project. So you'll probably hear more from us, see a couple more of us at these meetings, and we're just interested to follow the project. So, but thanks for discussing it today. Thanks for,
Thank
okay,
you.
absolutely.
Next one. Your name and your city, please.
Hello, my name is Tim Kamudi. I'm a Verona resident, 24 years. Planning board member for 6 years. Thank you by your appointment. I'm standing here as a follow-up to my letter that I sent the governing body on May 16th, but I'll briefly go through that for the attendees here. A friend of mine on DeWent had reached out to me a couple months ago and said, why did their block essentially get nearly clear cut of all its trees? He knows I'm a planning board member and, you know, was shocked at you know, what had happened to his block. I didn't know anything about it. Why? Because that never came before the board. And I visited the block, and it's a shocking change, including 100-year-old stately trees, you know, a shady, easy road has been really turned into a treeless, full sun environment on nearly the whole block. So I got in investigating this because one of the things that, to me, before I looked into this is a clear violation of our tree ordinance that I believe people on this board sponsored and voted for, which, if there's more than 2 trees cut down in a calendar year on a property, that must come, plans must come before the planning board for review, where I would have known about this as well as my board. Further investigation has basically, you know, I understood that there was some due diligence. Residents were notified. I had heard that permits were applied for, but I'm not sure on that. I know that no planning board was involvement or plans were ever seen. I have to have come across the plans from a shade tree person, but they're very light and certainly not something that would pass planning board muster. I also learned that the right of the town, this is by right of the town, municipal projects, to not be held to this tree ordinance that every private property and developer has to abide by. And that these projects simply signed off by you are allowed to go with very little oversight and very little notice. I also learned, even more disheartening, of other construction projects. And I'll mention the Ann Cypress reconstruction project, where the entire circle, you know, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the trees along the entire course-way have been cut down. And again, there's not a shade on the block. I don't know if you have driven and seen these places. Councilman Tamburo, you putting keen interest into the pool. I hope that each of you will go and take a look, because it's a shocking change. And because of that right, this can happen anywhere at any time, just by you know, you deciding that we need a municipal project. I want to bring this municipal oversight that I think is lacking here for major projects like this. And I want to put some ideas before you and ask you questions that you can answer at your leisure. One, our planning board rigorously scrutinizes every development. Would you be willing to allow by either voluntary or amending the laws so that the planning board for any major project gets to look and review and either make recommendations or approve the plans? Will you promise to replant DeWent and Ann Street according to the tree ordinance and with the largest caliber trees you possibly can? And yeah, I would like to know each of your support for the tree ordinance. And finally, this is the disheartening part. Tell me why I should stay motivated, be on the planning board, when the 7 years of work I've done has been wiped away in 6 months, it feels like a bit of a waste of time. So I need to be carried up a little bit on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
Anyone else like to comment? Like, we have a hand raised on Zoom. But if anyone in the room wants to get up, I'll do, please. And I'll get to our Zoom monitor right after.
Good evening. My name is Kate Kelly and I'm a Verona resident. I'm here tonight because I would like to congratulate Deputy Mayor Christine McGrath for being a two-time top vote getter in the recent town council election. This was an extremely rare occurrence as there has only been two-time top vote getters in the last 30 years. And there has never before been a woman who has been a two-time top vote getter. This is a sign, I think, from the community of how positively they view her performance. She's been a very present leader in our community, and we are expecting to continue seeing her lead in the same way in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I did promise I'd go to the Zoom commenters next. We do have a couple there, so we can have a few of them in. And then I'll ask if anyone else in the room wants to get up after that.
Hello, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you. Your name and your city of residence, please.
My name is Chris Waka, 85 Linwood Road in Verona, and I've never been a top vote getter, but congrats to those who have. But I want to say to the council, just number one, I'm grateful. I'm really proud to live in Verona, and I think the vast majority of people that live here feel that way. And a large part of that is the grunt work that you guys do. So thank you. I want to specifically say that I'm very appreciative of the conversation you guys had about the pickleball courts. I understand it's a really complex issue, but it helped us just to hear that conversation, and I'm optimistic, and I'm hopeful that sooner than later we'll find some kind of positive resolution. But I do appreciate you guys having such an open and candid conversation. And again, thank you for all you guys do. At the pool this weekend, it looks lovely, and it's just you make Verona a really good place to want to be. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You don't have to give your address. Just remember, if you do give it, we will not be redacting it from the videos. Please don't give your addresses. Can we bring in our next Zoom commenter?
Yes, Kevin Ryan again, Verona, New Jersey. I just wanted to thank you for the discussion about priorities and emphasize. I really think I don't know exactly which one of you suggested it, but I think you really do just have to devote a meeting to sitting down and listening things in order. I know the affordable housing issue sucked a lot of air out of the room for many, many years, and I was glad to see that it was hopefully put to bed by your vote tonight. So maybe you can now pivot to, I counted at least 6 or 7 projects that were just discussed in your conversation. And basically, the one I'll emphasize is the police department and the rescue squad. That came up right in the middle of the affordable housing conversation when I was sitting there. And unfortunately, it did get pushed back. There were a lot of monetary concerns that had to be dealt with affordable housing, with purchasing property, which no one talked about establishing the Green Acres Fund. That also took some time. So I really hope that you will, in good faith, sit down and just make a list of what each of you thinks is the top priorities, because you are not going to be able to fund them all in a 1-year period. You may have to go out with a strategic plan. Maybe you'll go list them in in the next 1 or 2 fiscal years. But I think it will give the residents clarity as to where where the council sits on taking care of the specific many needs that are coming up in the town. We are an old town with an old infrastructure, and unfortunately, a lot of our chickens are coming home to roost in a very short period of time. And I thank you for all the work that you're doing and try to address them, but just don't get too carried away and do them all at once, because I know there's been a lot of talk about wanting the seniors to stay in town. Okay, well, a lot of the seniors, if you start to fund all these things all at once, the tax base, I think the mayor made the point, whether you get the money from the taxpayer in the form of raised fees or raised property taxes, it's still coming out of the same individual's pocket. So you really have to put that front and center when you set the priorities. Thanks for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much. We have one more Zoom commenter, then I'll offer anyone else in the room after that. Next Zoom commenter, if we can let them in.
Yes, Sean DiBartolo from Verona. I guess I wanted to comment on the pickleball courts and the pickleball in Verona. And I guess I appreciate the conversation that you all are having tonight regarding, doing it right and not just, throwing a court in wherever. I brought up the comment before about, the north part of the pool parking lot where it might not be actually in Verona proper and not on Verona town lines. So I guess my question is whether or not if that's going to inhibit the use of that in the future, Verona centric versus opening up to county residents, where it's not actually within the town limits. I do like the idea of the prisoner's pond because it is within the town limits and it's not directly adjacent to residential homes. So that's seems like a good spot for it as well. But I guess I just wanted to say that moving forward, it's nice to see something happening here on the pickleball front, and I applaud you all for working this out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. If anyone else in the room wants to come for the lecture, please feel free.
Hi,
Your city of residence only.
Michael Hassar, Verona. I just want to piggyback off of what Tim mentioned before about the trees. So even if it doesn't come to pass that the planning board will be reviewing whether or not the town's going to cut down trees, I think at the very least, the townspeople who live on the streets that will be clear cut deserve some documentation in the form of an assessment by experts that indicate that there really was a reason why to cut the trees down, and some formal, format, where like an arborist or a civil engineer, other than just saying that this needs to be done and we're going to cut all of these trees down and we're going to significantly change the aesthetics of your block and maybe perhaps the reason why you moved there in the first place. I don't think it's a minor issue, especially if you live on the block. It's a pretty dramatic transformation for your day-to-day life. So I think it's really important to kind of consider that, at the very least, that consideration for the people that live there, to explain why we did this to your street. And I think to suggest that somehow these tiny trees are going to be put in place of the trees that were there, or in some cases 67 years old, is a minor, minor consolation for the change that's been made to the environment. And I think that, not to mention that environmentally, it makes sense to make sure that, the trees are put back and that this is considered really carefully before it's done again. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Last call. Do you
Hello, my name is Will Battersby and I live in Verona. I'd like to piggyback on what Mrs. Kelly, I think was your name, said, congratulate the deputy mayor, congratulate the mayor too. I believe the vote for mayorship is coming up, and having voted for all 5 of you on this council at one point, I hope that we're going to do the right thing and follow the spirit of democracy. And we're going to see a Mayor McGrath. Sorry, she didn't put me up to this. I look forward to a Mayor Holland at some point, a Mayor Tamboro too, if you all keep running. That's what I wanted to say, and definitely put in pickleball courts. As an avid pickleball player, I play in every town around here because they all have excellent facilities. Let's see them here in Verona too. Thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone else, please?
Hi, Genevieve Murphy-Braddock's, also a resident of Verona, New Jersey. I'd also like to piggyback off those comments. I'd like to say that I think in a town like this, we can all agree that representation matters. Deputy Mayor Christine McGrath had an exceptional showing in the last 2 elections. She is an exceptional councilwoman. I really appreciate her summaries that she provides in the council meetings. For all of us that are super busy and can't always attend these meetings, it's super helpful to have that information. And I think it would be helpful because I do feel there's some confusion in the community as to what the process is for selecting a mayor, that it would be helpful if the council would speak to sort of the process for that and any rules regarding that, and sort of any thoughts, things that are important to you as council members when you are selecting the next mayor. So I'd like to say that I was a supporter of Christine's. I have supported others here on the council as well. And I hope to see the council do the right thing when it comes to selecting the next mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Hi, my name is Chris Barrows. I'm a Verona resident. I'm going to echo off what some of the other folks have said. I will keep it brief for the sake of your agenda tonight. I will note one of the things, my first introduction to Christine was an introduction. I was aware of work she had done. And one of the reasons I came up here, and I want to say first and foremost, congratulations to both Christine and to you, Mayor, on your reelection. I stand up here, though, to speak about Christine because one of the things that she ran on, and I remember seeing it, was providing that clarity of what was happening in these meetings. It's a lot. We're sitting here tonight. This is a large crowd, obviously, and we're listening. But these meetings obviously have a lot of depth to them. And her breakdowns are so critically important for people to understand what's happening. I've heard it. I'm one of the administrators of the Verona Parents, Verona Cedar Grove Parents Group, and people have referenced this many, many times, both publicly and privately. And that's a group of 5,000 people. So I want to reference that. The other thing is the consistent attendance to events such as Pride, Juneteenth. Christine is an ally to so many people, and it's very difficult to come out in this space, even in 2023. And it's hard to understand, I think, but Christine is an ally, and I think it's so critically important. So I would echo the sentiment of what everyone else has said today. We'll look forward to the continued leadership. I will note I have voted for the majority of this council at some point as well, since everyone else is noting that. I do also want to note, because since my wife is not here, big supporter of pickleball, but I do certainly appreciate the logistics, and this board has done so much for me. Jack himself appointed me to the library board, so I'm incredibly grateful, and thank you for allowing us these comments this evening.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Good evening, Diane Conboy, Verona, New Jersey. I'm here also to echo a lot of what I'm hearing, even though I'm late, I'm sorry. Dedication to this town is a place to live. We love the trees. We love pickleball. We love knowing that our votes count. And we've voted you all in, and it seems appropriate that the highest votes help choose the mayor. And if there is some other reason that people are leaning a different way, transparency would be great to understand that. But otherwise, obviously, we're all here and trusting you, and we appreciate your dedication and service, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Last call. Okay, I will close public comment, and I'll respond. I'll kind of run through. I'm going to run through these mostly sort of in topic, because they did kind of center around a couple of topics. First off is pickleball, which a number of people commented on. So this is a very interesting one. I recognize that there's just an absolutely explosive demand for this sport. It's incredibly popular. It's getting people outside. It's getting people together with their neighbors. It's a wonderful thing. And I wish that we could do absolutely everything, and I wish we could do it all at once. I have to be sort of a realist a lot of the time when it comes to capital spending. About 10 years ago, I want to say Montclair kind of got themselves into trouble. They said yes to everything on a lot of projects, and they ended up with a very, very large amount of capital debt that took them some time to get through. We're in a higher interest rate environment than we were a number of years ago. The cost of construction on anything is very high. And everything we do here is sort of a balancing act. There are the things that are just sort of the necessary nuts and bolts of running a municipality of, does anyone really get excited when we buy a new backhoe, but we, need one? you know, whatever, and things like that. We have to buy an ambulance.
I get excited.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so do I honestly, but yeah, yeah.
Director of DPW.
Like when we're vacuuming out storm.
Yeah, we know he does that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And the wastewater treatment plant, my favorite place in town. It's you know, lots and lots of cool machinery.
When we fix it, it's my favorite.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, exactly. So there's like everything that we do, we have this huge project list. There's the day-to-day things of us running the town, of just, you know, handling the fact that everything that is a day older than it was yesterday, and things just need to be replaced on the cycle, to maintaining all of the buildings that we have, to paving the roads, to doing storm drainage improvements. And then we also recognize that we have a lot of resident demand for facilities and services. And so it's just a really big balancing act. And my only concern, sort of where I stand on all of this right now, is I do feel like I have a reasonably good 30,000-foot view of a lot of what's in front of us. And it is a lot, just to put it mildly. There are a lot of things we need to do. There are a lot of things that we want to do. And I just want to make sure that we, first off, don't overcommit our financial resources, our project management resources, and that we don't overpromise to the public, because that's almost worse than, you know, saying no to something in the first place, is saying yes to it and then just not doing it, or just delaying it, you know, infinitely. Is I'd rather just kind of be reasonable and be able to do these things in a manner that it delivers to the public. So I get it. I really appreciate the interest in pickleball. We are seriously looking at it. We do want to see plans, but we also do need to see this in a context with all of the other capital projects that are on the table. So I think that a prioritization and strategic planning effort is very much necessary at this point in time, so that we make sure that we know what we're getting into. And, you know, it's probably going to be a when, you know, at some point in time, we need to do something with courts. It's just, you know, when would we actually be able to do a project like that? So, you know, look forward to more information on that. And I like a lot of the creative ideas for locations and things like that. So we'll continue the discussion on that. On trees and road repaving projects, we've had this discussion about, I first saw this, we repaved a road. We did a road reconstruction a few years ago that involved the removal of some very, very large and historic trees. And I absolutely love large old historic shade trees. There's a nice, you know, not ancient, but a fairly old and large one outside of my house. I had replaced my sidewalk a number of years ago, and I went to great lengths to try and protect the tree, because it just wouldn't look the same without that tree there. And I'm glad that it's thriving today. We have a problem in this town that when a lot of these roads were built, the species of trees that were selected created a lot of issues. There are some that grow to a height where they go into the power lines. There are some that grow root systems that grow down into the storm drain systems, or that grow in such a manner that they will lift up the pavement. So there are challenges, and we know that when we do these major road reconstructions, we remove a lot of trees. It drastically changes the look of a neighborhood, and it kind of looks like a new subdivision all over again. And I agree with everyone that has the concerns. We do go talk to residents. We do project meetings. One of the interesting things that we find, and this is just kind of anecdotal, is when we offer to replant trees, some residents actually decline to have a tree planted on their own property because they don't want to care for it. We're trying to plant trees inward on properties rather than in the curb strip nowadays, to try and eliminate some of these problems. And we've had some pushback, and we're never going to force anyone to take a tree that doesn't want a tree. As far as bringing these projects through additional levels of review, I think that that's, you know, a worthy discussion for the council to have in conjunction with our engineering and DPW experts. At the end of the day, when we need to reconstruct the road, we need to reconstruct the road, because there's other things that go on, like storm drainage is a major issue. I mean, that's a big problem. The reason why we do a lot of these projects is to upgrade the storm drainage to deal with things like sump pump drains or existing flooding conditions. And unfortunately, a lot of deterioration to storm drains is a matter of tree root growth. So again, sort of all things in balance. From my own point of view, I am perfectly happy to have sort of a process and scope discussion, just to ensure that, you know, when we do things like these projects, we're doing the right thing. But as far as actually committing right now to a specific procedure, I kind of don't want to do it at the dais here without having had that talk yet. But I really do appreciate you bringing up the concern. I did actually drive Ann Street both this past weekend once it was completed, as well as a few weeks ago while the reconstruction project was going on. And I do agree with you that there is a lot of mature shade trees that aren't there anymore, and the street does look different. And then the final topic was, first off, everyone who congratulated Christine, I also congratulate Christine as well, on the concept of selection of the mayor. I do realize there is a lot of public interest in this. A couple things about the mayor position. So for those that might not know, I did serve 2 terms on the council. I've been the mayor for the last 2 years. The mayor's position in this town, under this form of government, we are not the executive authority. We are the leader of the legislative body. The mayor does not have a lot of special powers. For example, I do not have the power of a veto over legislation. I have the same vote as mayor as my colleagues on the council here do. The mayor principally leads the meetings. There are certain appointments that are mayoral appointments. There are ceremonial duties. We sign a lot of paperwork. But ultimately, you know, the phrase that Mr. Tamburo, Councilman Tamburo used was first amongst equals. We are equals up here, and we do all work together. As far as what was asked about in terms of what someone would be looking for in terms of a mayor, I think about how I want the council to operate. You know, every time that we vote for a mayor, I sort of think of that person as when they're sitting in the seat and how they manage the meetings, how they run the council, et cetera. The thing that I've tried to do during the last 2 years of my tenure here on the council is specifically to encourage debate and discussion. I heard sort of the first amongst equals phrase, and I kind of thought, well, wait a second, what I actually try and do is I try to be the last amongst equals. I honestly, I've always tried to speak sort of the least up here, and I like to hear from my colleagues. I like us to have very substantive policy discussions in public. I like the public to sort of see how we legislate and how we compromise. So I always try and make sure that everybody always has a chance to get their voice in here. And especially I like working with the public a lot. I really enjoy public comment. I like hearing from people. I like when it drives our legislation a lot. The other thing that I've tried to do up here in the last 2 years is to try and keep us productive as a council and to make sure that we get as many deliverables out as possible to the public, because time absolutely flies. 2 years has flown by in an absolute instant. So those are a lot of things. I like, you know, thinking about people who are going to put all the council members on sort of an equal footing to build relationships across the council. Those are the things that go into my mind when I am choosing who I want to vote for a mayor. As far as process goes, there is not actually sort of defined requirements in this form of government. We simply, the council, 3 votes on the council can select a mayor. And that's, you know, that is, again, if this were a separately elected mayor, or if the mayor had special powers, et cetera, and was selected by the public, or in municipalities where the mayor is the executive, those are other factors that come into consideration. But this is much like a lot of our other boards, like, for example, the planning board that chooses its own chair out of the membership of the board. That's how the functionality is set up for this. So I would encourage, there has not been a selection of a mayor yet. That happens only at our reorganization meeting on July 1st. Our terms expire at noon on that day, and we actually have to be sworn in again in order to be able to vote. And then after that point in time, the council selects the mayor and the deputy mayor. So I would invite everybody to come on that meeting, and that's all I'm going to say on that matter. So I will open it up to anyone else at the dais here who would like to comment on any matter from the public.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate all the pickleball folks and Mr. Mahmood, who also reached out by email. It's very helpful when we can get those thoughts and be able to respond to them. And the pickleball folks have been kind enough to invite me to their first tournament. Unfortunately, I was tied up with work, but on Saturday morning, unfortunately. But I look forward to seeing what are theirs. To Mr. Kamuti's point about the trees, I have walked every street in Verona and multiple times with my dog. I am a frequent walker on Derwent Avenue, and I appreciate how it looks on Derwent. And I was also upset to see the trees go. One of the problems with Derwent Avenue is that the township right away between the street and the sidewalk is very narrow in some of those places, and there were trees growing, power lines and things like that. So in a road reconstruction process, that's when we'll see this. The mayor and I attended the neighborhood meeting for Cypress Ann and Willow. It's one of the things that I insisted that we have more of. And we had, I think Mr. Neal was 50, 60 people about that. Mr. Neal was in attendance and Mr. Molinaro was in attendance. And the one piece that I would like to take from that Mr. Molinaro point that he made was that everybody will still live on a tree-lined street. That's something that Verona is very proud of. That's something that we tend to put on real estate listings. But the problem is that when we do plant these and offer them to people, they have to be taken care of. And some people have not been willing to do that. And that's one of those pieces. So I also had the opportunity several times to look at the construction zone on Cypress Ann and Willow. In fact, I was there on the last day of construction, watching the road get paved and talking to residents. I've been in pretty constant communication with residents on those streets, which is why we had additional public meetings for the road reconstruction. And I think it's something that we're going to continue. I've asked the administration to continue, and they have committed to it. Thank you, Mr. Giarco. And we'll have that constant communication about what that's going to look like moving forward. Communication is always something we can improve on, but I agree with you that we should have as many trees as possible. I actually just found an old picture from my house in the basement that doesn't belong to me. And there's a beautiful tree in my front yard that is no longer there. And it was just kind of a reminder to me on the importance of that. To Mr. Ryan, I appreciate your support for doing a priority session. My vision for that is that I share with most of our council members, is to have a day that we set aside, preferably a Saturday, or a day that we're not confined by time and asking our staff to be here till midnight, 1 a.m., whatever, where we don't have business items, but rather we sit and talk about priorities. We do as much of that as we can in open, because the public should be commenting on these priorities as well. I'm thankful for all the members of the public who come to us and provide that feedback, because this council, one thing I'm very proud of with this group is that we do act on resident feedback pretty consistently. So I hope that we can see that, and I appreciate the deputy mayor bringing that up and support moving forward. And I think I addressed Mr. Hussar, and look forward. Hopefully, I'm glad that so many people attended our meeting tonight and that we have a vibrant public. I'm very proud of participatory democracy, and hope that we continue to see this many folks at our meeting on June 26th and our reorganization meeting on July 1st at noon. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else want to respond?
Inquiries about the mayor. Wanted to add that we do have discussion on item N4, and in that item we'll be talking about our reorganization meeting, and it is that reorganization meeting where the mayor is selected. So I personally have some concerns with us in new business, but I just wanted to flag for those members of the public that you may not have otherwise been familiar with, but we will be discussing it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm just going to add as the liaison for the Shade Tree Committee that they too are very upset with, what happened in the road reconstruction projects, and there is an opportunity to make sure that the Shade Tree Committee is much more engaged in the beginning of the process, and Mr. Giarco has already addressed that with those members, and we'll have a better process going forward. I do agree with you. Our shade trees are great. But, it's really at the shade tree level that that committee is really deputized to serve as the advocates for those projects. And Mr. Giarco has assured us that those will be, that process will be improved going forward. It's hard because we get, as the council is not involved in the nitty gritty of the construction, we have to trust our engineers. But it is a push and a pull, because every time we lose a significant tree, we're losing stormwater management. But some of those significant trees were causing issues with stormwater management because their roots were growing into, critical infrastructure that we have. On Derwent in particular, we have a very additional challenge that the planting strip is very narrow. And there's been some change, Mayor, too. We've gone back and forth on this many times. I don't think right now we're planting trees or offering to plant trees on people's property. The challenge is to find the right tree for that narrow planting strip. But I do encourage any residents listening to this to get involved with the Shade Tree Committee and apply to be on the Shade Tree Committee. And we have some great volunteers, some of which are here tonight. You know, in terms of residents were asking, and they said some lovely things. So I just want to thank everyone. We're acknowledging my the last election. But what I will say about the process of picking mayor for me, it always has been to me what the will of the voters have said has always been important to me, and that's why, you know, when I selected my first mayor, which was Mayor McAvoy, I was very enthusiastic in supporting him because he was the top vote getter, and in fact, it has won 2 elections, and that's really important. I think it's a sign from the people. The second time around, you know, the process seemed to be focused more on seniority and rotating the position and make sure everyone getting a turn. And I think that's fairly fair because again, it is an administrative position. And so rotation is also fair as well. So for me, those are 2 things that really weigh very highly in my mind. But thank you everyone who spoke. And I think we will talk more about this later on in the agenda. Thank you.
Just to answer a couple comments that were made. Jamal, thank you for coming here tonight and talking. I think you got a good understanding of how we feel as a council. It's not just building pickleball courts, it's the parking lot that'll surround it. So those costs start to escalate when you get into a project like that. And even at the pool, if we move them down below, then we're gonna have to redo that whole area up top with parking. So you're probably gonna hit a good 6-figure number. So we have to, you know, plan for that. And I did actually go to caught the end of the tournament up there. And I know it's a sport that's exploded. My brother keeps asking me to play with him. And everybody, it's just amazing to me how many people now play it and go by all these courts. But I want questions answered before we can move forward. But thank you and everybody else that talked about pickleball that kills half of the people that were up here. When we talk about trees, I'm gonna go to what Mr. Ryan said. He brought up a very good point because we talked about the pool earlier on and how long it took for the splash pad. But Mr. Ryan brought up the point about affordable housing, and it hit this council and it took a tremendous amount of time going through it. And then we got into COVID. So we were so focused on all of these things and going in so many different directions. That is why we as a council here have been so busy for the last 2 years, because it was like that wave. We just got through COVID and stopped, and that wave just hit us, and all these things came after us. And that's what we've been dealing with up here for the past couple of years. So I think it's very important for everybody to understand that and see where we're coming from. When we talk about the trees, I think Mr. Kamudi, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We were well aware of it. However, we do have a forester on staff now. So perhaps at the beginning of a road construction, we can go out there and maybe find a way around a tree or 2. I grew up on Ann Street, so I can see, and I've been at least every other day I was there through construction, and I'm still going down there, but it's totally changed the neighborhood. I do agree. However, when you deal, for the people that don't know the area and what we did waste lines, we did water lines, we did storm sewer lines, we did interior storm drainage lines underneath the sidewalks. So if we tried to leave some trees, there were a couple that were left that were newly planted. In the coming years, they would be gone because we cut through too many of the roof lines. So I was, if not one of the biggest proponents of our tree ordinance and pushed for it for many years now. I am the happiest one in the town, I think, that it got passed. I was sad to see all those trees disappear. It has changed the neighborhood, but we will replant. I know when we went through Linwood, conversation came up about possibly planting trees on the other side of the sidewalk, not in the apron on residents' property. But there's a legal issue there. Now it's on the residents' property. Can we take care? Can they take it down in a year? So it's things we've juggled, and we deal with the size of aprons are completely different all over town. So it is a really tough issue to deal with. And I think the Shade Tree Commission is now looking at it, and they're picking different trees, so different trees can go in different areas. I have my opinions on which one should go where, and I voice them at different times when it's not this the place to do it. But I think the forester can help out with this. And where was my thought going lastly? Speaking to Mr. Canuti, your analysis and evaluation of applications are very detailed and well thought out at planning board meetings. I serve on the planning board with him, and I have for the past quite a few years. So I think those are reasons and major reasons why you should remain on the planning board and not step down. That was your question, so I'm answering. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Okay,
No, Mr. Mayor,
please go ahead.
could we have a recess, please?
Yes, we will go into recess for 5 to 10 minutes, so we'll be back.
Thank you very much.
Time is 9:29. We are now back in session. We were right at the ordinances. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of ordinance 2023-22?
Bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the Township of Verona and the County of Essex, New Jersey, appropriating $600,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $570,500 bonds or notes for the township, finance part of the cost thereof.
Somebody please move the ordinance.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, moved by Councilman McAvoy, seconded by Deputy Mayor McGrath. Now it's time for a public hearing on ordinance 2023-22. Madam Clerk, please read that public hearing.
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance matter, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. If you're in person, please raise your hand to be recognized. When you are recognized, clearly state only your name and township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address, however, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel, and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. You'll have 4 minutes to address the council. There'll be no cross dialogue during this hearing, and once everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council may address your comments and or questions.
All right, just let me know when we're open. We are. Okay. Anyone? Okay, last call. Okay, I'll now close the public hearing. Any council discussion on this matter?
Mayor,
Yes, please.
for the public edification, I will be remaining on the dais, but staying silent on this matter. 14-year member of the Verona Rescue Squad. I have in the future requested that the township administration disaggregate any non-rescue squad purchases, so we don't have a police vehicle in with the ambulance, so I can vote on. And if I were to vote on police vehicles, it'd be an affirmative vote. Thank you.
Noting his recusal, any further council discussion?
This ordinance speaks for itself.
Okay, very well. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland?
Yes.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGrath?
Yes.
Mayor Roman?
Yes.
Mayor ordinance G1 will pass 4-0, will be published according to law.
Right. Then moving on to 2023-24, Madam Clerk, please read the title of that ordinance into the record.
Creating chapter 307 entitled Invasive Plant Species and Trees.
Would somebody like to move the ordinance?
So moved.
I have a second. Second. Moved by Councilwoman Holland, second by Councilman McAvoy. Now is the time for a public hearing on this ordinance. The same public comment statement applies. Please just raise your hand on Zoom or the blackberry. Anyone? Last call. Okay, I will now close public comment on this. Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland?
Yes.
Councilman Tamboro?
Yes.
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGrath?
Yes.
Mayor Roman?
Yes.
Mayor, G2 passes 5-0 and will be published according to law. And I just want to put the scrivener's error in the chapters will be changed to 307.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more ordinance on second reading, which is 2023-25. Madam Clerk, please read the title of that ordinance.
Amending chapter A 565-1, schedule of fees, chapter 140-20.3C, charging station fees of the code of the township.
Would you like to move the ordinance?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman McAvoy. Can I have a second? Second by Deputy Mayor McGrath. Now it's time for public hearing on ordinance 2023-25. Same comment, rules apply. Let's call. I will close public comment on this. Any council discussion?
I'll actually thank our township attorney for writing this up and getting into this quickly and short, sweet, and to the point.
All right,
It's a good ordinance.
we know. Okay, anyone else? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland? Yes. Councilman Tamboro?
Yes.
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGrath?
Yes.
Mayor Roman?
Yes.
Mayor ordinance 2023-25 passes 5-0. Will be published according to law.
Okay, we have one ordinance on first reading. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of that ordinance into the record?
Amending various sections of the code of the Township of Verona by creating the office of deputy manager, eliminating chapter 5 administration of government, article 7 Department of Administration and Economic Development, and amending chapter 5 administration of government, article 11 Department of Public Works to create chapter 5-125 division of buildings and grounds, functions, responsibilities, and duties.
Would you like to move the ordinance?
So
Moved by Councilman Tamboro. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilman McAvoy. I'll ask Mr. DiArco if he wants to give a brief council summary.
Yes. And really, it's restructuring in the organization in DPW, putting the buildings ground. It is a division now, and putting it in a department. It was under administration. It's not appropriate. We should be there. We're eliminating the Department of Administration and Economic Development because it's the place that was the duties of that department. And it was recommended that the township manager position, which would be actually second in command of the organization, would be my second, your deputy manager.
Okay, so that is essentially what this is doing is we are within the same number of managers, we are changing the org chart as such that there would be a deputy manager's position that would have oversight over various departments and be the second in command. Okay. Is that fair? Yes, sir.
I just have one question on the way the ordinance is structured. So as it stands now, the ordinance creates the deputy manager position. But also sets the salary in the same ordinance. I had a question if we could, I think that's a little strange. If you could comment on that, Mr. Lawyer.
Yeah, sure. So I have a red light, so we can hear me. In the code with regard to like the manager position and other positions that you have, if you look at appointment qualifications for the deputy manager, I followed the same pattern. And what they all say is compensation to be paid shall be set by ordinance. And the ordinance is usually a general salary ordinance where we have everybody listed. So what will happen is the 135 is being set by this ordinance, but in the future, it will appear on that salary list. It will not be in this section of the code. It'll be on a separate salary code list. But instead of doing two ordinances, it's a different now, therefore be it ordained. So you can see the salary is set in this particular ordinance by a separate be further ordained. So it won't be actually in the code in this section. It'll be on that list that is maintained by the clerk's office.
So I do understand the process and how that works. My concern is if we're taking votes on this and there seems to be two different issues. The first is having the position, the second is setting the salary and putting it in one. That's one of those just things I'm trying to think through because normally we don't do that. We don't create a position and then assign a salary to it right away. That's generally when you try to revise the whole ordinance. I just, as a matter of discussion, putting in there. The one thing I would request before we do our second reading is a comparable. list of similar positions in Essex County and other similarly situated municipalities, just so we're doing what we can. I'm in support of having a position. I just want to make sure that we cover our bases and do everything correct.
Sure, so you couldn't, just the council's aware, in my opinion, you couldn't pass this ordinance and not also set a salary, not this necessarily the salary that's in here, at the same time, only because you have someone that's in that economic blah, blah, blah position. They are now being moved into the deputy position, so you need to have a salary so they can get paid, obviously, and pay their bills. What you can do if you want to have separate discussions is we can split these apart, but that almost doesn't make sense because you can't pass one without the other. You have to have them both.
Okay. That's reasonable. Thank you.
Mayor, I will have the justification report that you need before you finally. We can go into closed session at that point and then put it on the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I will have that.
I appreciate Mr. Giarco, a lot of this is a closed session, but really looking at organizational development for Northwest Municipality and your human resources experience in areas about it. Thank you.
Any further council, any other questions?
I have a quick, in here, under appointment and qualifications, we have listed on the job description maintained by the township. We do have this job description already written.
Yeah, I circulated the job description. I did do the new organizational chart for you. That was done. Previous meeting. Excellent comments from the council. We changed the title from assistant to deputy, veteran civil service. And I did give you the new organizational chart and the job description.
And is there any change to public works and buildings and grounds?
No, well, other than the division's being moved into the Department of
Public Works, so Public Works will oversee.
Yeah, and I met with the director and the division head, and reported that to the council in the meeting prior to my vacation. And internally, that's, no problem still. I met with the staff, including subordinates in the division, and was concerned about what the chain of command was, for lack of better terms. And I went over it with the staff people that nothing is really changing except it is a division in public works, not under the department administration and economic development.
That's why I asked.
Okay, it went through all levels. I do meet with employees personally, face to face.
Thank you. Anyone else on this one? Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Holland,
Yes.
Councilman Tamboro.
Yes.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGrath.
Yes.
Mayor Roman.
Yes.
Mayor ordinance H will be numbered 2023-26. It will be published according to law, and a public hearing will be held on June 26th.
Okay. We're going to move into our consent agenda. We'll run through the consent agenda items real quickly, and then we'll offer public comment on any of those items. We have two dedications by rider, which is for animal control fees and tree escrow. The tree escrow, I believe, is the developers funds towards trees for their livelihood. I think. Accepting the Clean Communities Grant and the National Opioid Settlement Grant. I would like to discuss the open space tax real quickly. There was a voter approved open space trust fund. The tax rate is 2 cents per $100 of assessed value, I believe it is. Mr. Giarco, could you please discuss the interest in changing the rate here?
Yes, it's the increase will be significant assistance in funding your open space projects or recreation projects. It's a small amount, but it will retrieve a significant amount of money. I believe the finance CFO had previously for vacation lag, previously provided you with those projections, which were very positive. The clerk has worked diligently with the township attorney to get that all prepared for you, so we have it on for November ballot. I'm not sure if there's any other details you want. We'd have to bring up that report again.
No, I mean, that was, the challenge was from the report was essentially that we had exhausted all of the revenues from the open space trust fund on the land purchases, and we're just not in a position to use it to do other things right now, so.
Well, actually, I think we're overspending.
We are.
And so
It's costing us money.
costing us money. So if voters were to approve this increase, it would cover the amount that we use, the 12 million to buy the 25 acres. And then that frees up capital in our general operating budget that maybe we can use for pickleball or other projects. Well, pickleball is the hot word of the day. So this would help us with that. I just want to add that you had indicated if we move forward, you would hire a firm to help explain this to voters.
Yeah, and what we may not have. Because we now have the public information officer on. She starts next week, I believe, Steve.
Yep, on the 19th.
And really has an excellent background. I think we'll run some test trials. And we have so much public information laid out. We'll be able to see the production there, and then I can make the decision moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving along, authorizing our 2023 estimated tax bills to go out. Contract with Academy of Apparel for recreation uniforms, I believe. All American Sewer for sewer services, buying a pickup truck from Cars on 15 Incorporated. Two contracts related to equipment at the wastewater treatment plant with JDV Equipment and Sherwood Logan and Associates. Contract with Starfire Corporation, which is our fireworks. And then executive session, we do not have an executive. Do we have an executive session?
Yes, we did.
Okay, it's just not listed under executive. The matters aren't under executive session. Is that which topics?
It's going to be a litigation, tax appeal settlement, purchase of property, and potential sale of property.
Okay. Okay, there are no licenses and permits. Would someone like to move the consent agenda and ask for council discussion? If any? So moved. Okay, moved by Councilman Tamburro. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second. Deputy Mayor first. Any council discussion on the consent agenda? Actually, first I'll go for public comment for council discussion. Public comment on consent agenda items only for a minute.
I'm sorry.
Okay, seeing none, last call. I'll close public comment on the consent agenda. Any council discussion?
Just one item, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Could we get an update? I know we are paying for a vehicle out of part of the communities grant fund, but for the National Opioid Settlement Grant, if you could just give us an idea of what we anticipate spending that money on.
Yeah, so right now, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's about, yeah. The police had an idea lined up that kind of fell through. So right now we're actually focused on outreach and education. So really to promote awareness and different programs that are out there. So actually with the upcoming National Night Out on August 2nd, there's going to be a whole table with materials. I think that even a new tent just for opioid awareness programs in the area. And then different organizations will also come table at that. So that's the focus for right now for that is just to try and get some print materials, outreach, campaign materials together.
I know that it is now state law that our police carry Narcan, our rescue squad is opted in carrying a narcotic antagonist, and there's a requirement to leave educational materials and Narcan after it is used on somebody if they don't go to the hospital, which is unfortunately becoming usual for people who overdose and not actually and refuse to be transported because they have been Narcan. I was wondering if there was a way that we could potentially, as one of these outreach programs, get some materials that explain why it is important to go to the hospital after you overdose. You know, something like a laminated item that the police can hand out, the rescue squad can hand out. We get some nice colorful ones put out, but explaining some of the dangers of not being transported. The primary one is that you don't really have to start the treatment, right? That's issue number one, but you can stop recruiting later. And unfortunately, people who tend to get Narcan once often need it again on repeated occasions, as is the nature of the crisis. So we could hand out something where we really try to push that in some literature or even a small video on a QR code or something like that, just thinking outside the box a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely relay that. Also, was working with the chief. They are going to look into actually getting more Narcan kits They were getting it for free through the state, but I think that may have dried up right now. So we'll actually be able to purchase Narcan kits also.
It should still be active. We'll talk,
Okay.
because I have access to it.
Okay.
Any further council discussion? Please.
I just have a quick question about like a budget, do we know? Can I get a follow-up from the CFO if we don't?
Yeah, I think that's just a small portion of it, is the pool, and then it's more for the other recreational programs like basketball uniforms.
Oh, totally, that makes sense,
Yeah.
and I think that's in the recreation budget. Come from the general recreation budget or from the actual utility.
Gotcha. We'll follow up.
Okay. Get back to you.
Any further council discussion? Okay. For the consent agenda, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Before I do a point of order, Mayor, just
Please go
need to make a correction on K2. In the first whereas. The fees received from the general public for various tree replacement fees, not animal control fees for the tree replacement fund. I'm just gonna make that quick change before I certify. Thank you.
Without objection. Okay. All right.
Now. Because I lost my agenda.
Starting on
Great,
118.
thank you. Okay. Councilwoman Holland?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Campbell?
Yes.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
Mayor Roman?
Yes.
So resolutions K1 through K13 will be number 2023-123 through 2023-135.
Okay, very much. Okay, we do have an addendum this evening, which is 2 resolutions for our liquor licenses. The consumption licenses, of which there are 5, and then the distribution licenses, of which there are 3. Would someone like to move these resolutions? Moved by Councilman Gambaro, I have a second. Seconded by Councilman McAvoy. I did actually just have one question that came up from the public. We are at about 14,500 population right now, I believe, and likely to cross 15,000 sometime in the near future. I understand that would probably make us eligible for another liquor license.
Next week.
Please, good. Of course you may.
It would not.
It would not.
For consumption licenses for bars, the population is 1 license for every 3,500. And for the liquor stores, the retail distribution, it's 1 license per 7,500. We're over.
Yes.
Being grandfathered, having other licensees grandfathered in, so
Okay, I thought it
a
was.
little bit more, but that's like the idea.
Yeah, I thought it was 3,000. So okay. All right. Any further discussion on this?
Are we going to do public comment?
Certainly. I'll ask, are these licenses, the licensees in order?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment on liquor license renewals?
Maybe a toast.
Seeing none, I will close public comment.
I would like to make a
Please go ahead.
comment. These are all great and I'm sure they're in order. Thank you. And there's some, really wonderful businesses in Verona. But we've missed an opportunity now 2 years in a row to increase the fees associated with these businesses. And there are caps by which we can increase the fees every year. And again, these are small amounts that these businesses can absolutely pay, but we're missing the opportunity to bring in more revenue. It's very small just on these businesses. I think I calculated once it was around $14,000, which is a very small amount when we think about, alcohol consumption in general. But we're missing opportunity to keep that revenue growth going. And so, again, we have a lot of things to fund and we should be looking for the little things, the bigger things to keep that revenue growing. So, I would like for us to have a conversation about fees so we don't miss the opportunity next year to increase these. Thank you.
Noted. Any further council discussion? Okay. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll? This will be for both of them unless anyone has any objection. Seeing none.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilman Tamboro,
Yes.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGrath.
Yes.
Mayor Roman.
Yes.
Mayor M1 and M2 will be numbered 2023-136, 2023-137.
Thank you very much. Moving on into new and unfinished business. The first discussion item here is a capital ordinance for $60,000 for shade tree replacement and sidewalk installation and catch basin replacement funded by the Capital Improvement Fund. Mr. Fiarco, are you looking for us to introduce? These are only on for discussion in new business. Okay. Then since they're in new business, I'm not going to ask for motions on them because they're not going to be close for action. But I'll just ask you to please, for Mr. New.
I'm gonna turn it over to Steve. You realize I've signed lots of assignments this year.
Yeah. Yes.
Which was a desire of the council.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so for this one, we actually are, for the capital ordinances, we are looking for action if possible, or we can follow up. I believe we have everything prepared. But so the 60,000 is various shade tree replacements and sidewalk repairs throughout town.
For anything that you're looking for action on that is in new business, we haven't kind of, I'd like to know if there's a time sensitive component to it, or, and if you could please explain what that is specifically, because this is, our product, we sort of settled on a process that the ordinances are now sort of 3 stages. And if we want to break that, there needs to be reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say both of these are not emergencies, but we are already in June. So by the time these actually get passed and we have the money, we're actually now looking at October, and then we're actually looking at new ordinances and capital ordinances for 2024. So again, not an emergency, but it will cause a delay in some of this work. So we are hoping to kind of get that started, especially the sidewalk repair and tree replacements and catch basin.
I see the deputy mayor's hand.
Yeah.
I just have I just put on something to add for the timely. Because we don't have our 23-24 meetings yet. If we don't introduce this tonight, which is fine, I would suggest that we'd have to do it in the second meeting in January. In
July.
in July, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think
push
ahead
to
of the
August.
meetings.
That's a good point. That's a good
So
point.
it would, the timeliness with this
We'll have
was
some more
taking that into consideration more than just the start of the project itself.
Okay, then, yeah, I mean, I'll ask if anyone on the council has any objections to.
I think it's a fair point because we had issues with starting construction projects.
Yes.
And the winter coming, and especially if we're planting trees, we would like them to live.
Yes.
So I normally would maybe not be okay with voting right away, but in these circumstances, it is a smaller amount of money and the time does provide a reason to proceed.
And this is not new bonding being authorized. Okay, please, Deputy.
Thank you. So as representative to the Shade Tree Committee, this is kind of our standard capital ordinance that we do for shade tree to just minimally keep up with shade tree replacement and then the replacement of sidewalks that the shade trees had, upended. But the shade tree is working with the administration on a much more significant proposal. Again, as we've talked about tonight, we are behind on maintenance for shade trees. They had a 5-year plan that was done 3 years ago. And there are components of that plan that do need significant capital investment in order to proceed, including pruning of some very large pin oaks. As much help as the administration can provide to our volunteers to help them cultivate those recommendations so they can come and present, and we can consider that later in the year as part of a 5-year plan. So this is just normal standard maintenance, but they need a more strategic project to be funded for the safety of our residents and the preservation of some of our beautiful shade trees, which we heard about tonight.
And Mayor, if I may, in some of those discussions we did have during the budget process.
We did.
With the trees and the sidewalks that need repairs and the construction timelines are critical.
Yeah.
Right, and the president of the Shade Tree Commission did also reach out to me earlier in the year as well, and I did direct him to ask for capital to try and catch up with some of the backlog. So that's fair. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Then no objection to introducing this evening. Then. Okay. Would somebody like to move the ordinance for introduction?
So moved.
Sorry.
Moved by Deputy Mayor McGrath, seconded by Councilman Tamburo. For any further discussion? For introduction, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGrath,
Yes.
Mayor Roman,
Yes.
Mayor, N1 will be number 2023-27. It will be published according to law and a public hearing will be held on June 26th. Thank you.
Right. And we have another capital one, which I assume that that's another one where you're looking for introduction this evening, or
Yes, that one we would be too. Just this one's pretty straightforward for a digital plan table for our building department. This is actually now required by the state, so this will help us fall into compliance with that.
then I'll ask Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance by title.
Thank you. A capital ordinance appropriating $15,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the I-Plan table located in the Construction Code Department.
And I'm sorry, did we get I may have missed this. Did we get an ordinance number and a hearing date for
N1.
For N1?
Yes, we did.
Okay,
It's
thank
2023-27, and the public hearing will be held on June 26th.
Thank you. Then for N2, would somebody like to move that?
I'll move that.
All right, moved by Councilman McAvoy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Neal has already given a brief summary of that. Any council discussion on the matter?
Yeah, I read an article on these about a year ago. And
Yes.
there's tremendous for building departments and speed things up, and it gives the public a better, you don't have to go to the building department, you can submit plans online and stuff, so it's a great purchase for the town.
And again, it's within the existing capital improvement fund that's paying for this. So, okay. Please call the roll.
Councilman Holland.
Yes.
Councilman Tamborg.
Yes.
Councilman McAvoy.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McGrath.
Yes.
Mayor Roman.
Yes.
Mayor N2 will be number 2023-28. Will be published according to law, and a public hearing will be held on June 26th.
Okay. For the remaining three ordinances, are these for discussion or introduction this evening? Discussion only. Okay. The first one is was brought up by a member of the public regarding prohibiting parking within 4 feet of driveway. We had asked for some internal discussion amongst the township and the police department regarding an ordinance in this manner. Could you tell us your Mr. Neal?
Yes, there was a discussion on this while I was down there, and that was the chief again, and his recommendations relative to the distance from driveways. Is 4 feet, he was fine with that, he thought 5 would be better, if you were. I did. It calls for 4, that's not.
You are.
And I fully recommend that you do this based on the calls I've been receiving during the 14 months I've been here, and I've gone to a number of homes to look at the difficulty of people in various sections of town parking that close to driveways and encroaching further the driveways, making it difficult to pull out of the driveways. It's an ordinance I've seen in multiple communities that I've been.
Now, I guess another question that I would ask on this one is, in some communities, I don't know whether it's the municipality that does this or whether they permit the residents to do this, but there are markers painted near driveways on curbs showing the distance.
I'm really not big on markers on curbs. If you do it, you're gonna have to maintain this in perpetuity, and that's a problem. You're gonna have
A lot of curbs.
Yeah.
We also
Yeah,
have the Belgian look.
You have
Right.
enough to do, yeah.
Yeah.
I would not recommend you do that.
Right.
I can tell you, if the council views this favorably, there will be a full community education program relative to this. With our new public information officer, there would be community outreach. And then when enforcement phase comes in, it would be a warning summons that'd be tracked in the computers of the police department. And the second violation would be automatic tickets.
And I've also seen signs placed in other municipalities also just showing the general, regulation. Okay.
It's good.
Either one.
Sure, I just was gonna say that, in my experience talking with residents around town, I know that there's gonna be a lot of support for this. But I do think it's good that we're discussing it in new business and allow it to marinate and circulate around town. So that we can get a diversity of opinions. We did already get one comment, but I want residents who live near schools to really understand that we're thinking of doing this and, about the 4 feet in particular. But there are some blocks where, the parking is really tight, and so we may get other opinions as well, and so I'd like to hear a diversity there, but I'm really excited that we wrote this and we're considering it. Because it really is a safety issue, especially for the residents that live near the elementary schools in particular, and HPW.
I think Councilman Mack was first.
So I did get an email from a resident near the Ephraim Brown area, and really the email was, it's good if we pass this, but if we don't enforce it, so then it really means nothing. My thought on this is, especially around the schools, is I hate sign pollution, but
I was just gonna say.
put a couple signs up, at least do like a 6-month or the beginning of school years is important. Do something like that where they're temporary. So people get the idea that this is a law that's going to be enforced, and then maybe we can take them down. Hopefully people will not break the law.
Okay.
2 points, Mr. Mayor. The first is thank you for doing the public education campaign. I brought that up at the last meeting. It's something we absolutely have to do. The second is, would this be something that our meter enforcement officers could enforce?
Thank you.
Okay, so
It's a town ordinance.
okay, so we wouldn't be necessarily, we wouldn't have to tie up sworn police officer time, and we could have them do some routine patrols, but also respond to some neighbor complaints as well.
Correct. And if the police, if I'm in there, the police, zone cars in a zone and they see a violation, they're not gonna. Chief will alert the department's fault. That was the idea.
And again, I really do appreciate this was brought to us by a resident, and here we are, very rapidly responding to something that makes a lot of sense. So, would anyone have any objection to seeing an ordinance for introduction at the next available opportunity? So, all right, very well. Okay, moving on to the administration of government ordinance amendment, which essentially lets us change the location of, is that the only effect of this is to remove the location of the meeting. This is number 4.
So I guess I have concern with that because as draft, actively reaffirming that entire paragraph, whereas we had discussed we had a rain date, we had to move the location in. But as currently written, so we're not striking that language, instead we're readopting the whole paragraph again without that language, including all of the language about the mayor selection, about how the mayor shall be chosen by a ballot, by a majority vote of members. The fact that the members shall be, if we are unable within 5 ballots, taken within 2 days of the organization meeting to elect the mayor, then the member who is who in the last election received the greatest number of votes, the mayor, and so forth. It's including this 2-day rule. It's including other stuff that's currently in our ordinance, but that wasn't the discussion at the last meeting. And we do have a number of residents that have voiced concerns. If we are going to move forward with this, because we were concerned about compliance with location, then I would propose that we just strike that language, as opposed to reaffirming all of this other language.
I mean, so you basically just rather have an ordinance that says the ordinance is amended to strike the following language and then just those words.
I think that would be more consistent with our than information that's in here. But I'm happy to have this discussion. We do have members of the public that are very interested. So if you want to have that discussion, that's fine too. But I do think it's much more strike the language that we discussed.
Mr. Lawyer, from a drafting perspective, do you have any concerns with drafting in that manner?
If I'm understanding correctly, the only thing you want to do is pass an ordinance that removes.
We just want an ordinance that deletes rather than restates the paragraph. Just simply says the following phrase is stricken from.
We've done that before.
That's fine. We can certainly do that. That's fine. We can certainly do that. If I have to press the button, I'll repeat myself. Certainly do that and amend it that way.
Because then it doesn't open up a debate over the means of selection.
The rest of the ordinance is actually taken right from the statute.
Oh, I agree. Well, it's taken from our ordinance, not from the statute.
No, it's also from the statute.
It's also from the statute.
Yeah, that controls our full government.
Yeah, I mean, for the purposes of clarity, in that we are not proposing in this ordinance to make a change to this method. And for what we discussed, I mean, I would be fine for just to be, a deletion only.
I'm sorry, I do have one more.
Yeah,
The
one more.
process of selecting the mayor is in the statute, is your position.
Yes.
Okay.
I know we discussed only at the last meeting removing the location, but I do wonder if we should be opening up, being flexible on the time. By removing the time and saying, just saying on the first day of July following each election of the council, we should assemble and organize. Do we want to, not for this particular reorg meeting, I think we set that, but I'm just saying to allow for future councils to be able to meet at 9 in the morning.
Yeah,
And do a reorg then, or
that's a good question. I mean, it's, I guess our terms expire at 11:59 a.m. But if you redid it earlier, does that really matter? Maybe you only actually officially take off. Is it splitting hairs here?
That was the discussion at the last meeting as well.
I saw Matt go first.
Since we're talking about this, years ago, I even saw this and I was thinking we should take this line out. I know for a fact that it's never gone to 5 votes. However, if it ever does go to that, and this election is a perfect example, there's only 2 people that are up for this election. I actually think that we have removed the line in the last election for members so that it goes to the entire council. If 5 people can't vote by 5 votes, it should go to the entire council, to whoever gets the most votes in whatever.
Again, is this controlled by statute or is this discretionary?
I believe it's in the statute. I'll get back to you on that. If we can make the change, you just.
Yeah, could you pull the statute for us?
And then I'll
No, I was gonna ask for the Faulkner Act citation on that as well, from Mr. Wyatt. I think whether we strike it or whether we adopt this, it's a distinction without a difference. And I think we can proceed going in this direction because it's the same. It's the same end.
Jen has it pulled up already. If you want to work.
I have it as 4069A-86 under the council manager form of government for the Faulkner. From Mr. Charter. You want me to bring it, you to read it, Brian? 40.
You said
69A.
69A-86.
Yes.
Thank you. I can pull it.
Yeah. That is straight from the statute.
Yeah.
Including that, 5 votes or 5 ballots, 2 days.
Yeah.
First day of July is first day of July or January. As appropriate following the election, the members of the elected municipal council shall assemble at the usual place of meeting to govern the body, municipality. Organize and elect one of their members of the mayor. The mayor should be chosen by ballot by majority vote of all members of the municipal council. The members shall be unable within 5 ballots to be taken within 2 days of said organization meeting to elect the mayor and the mayor. Who in the election for members of the municipal council received the greatest number of votes shall be the mayor. Should such person decline to accept the office, then the person receiving the next highest vote shall be the mayor, and so on until the office is filled. Or then it goes on to explain what happens if you had a general election. With the mayor being elected by the voters.
Is the time specified in the statute?
In the 2 days?
No, the time, the date, the 12 noon.
No, 12 noon, and we discussed that last time. You can change that, but for whatever reason, I believe the direction was the council said that they wanted to change.
If I could speak to that, Mr. Mayor, that was our conversation at the last meeting. I am concerned if we have different times, because the conversation I brought up is that once you run for council, you expect to need to be available on July 1st at noon. Unfortunately, 2 years ago, it was 6:00 p.m. for whatever reason, when the Councilman Holland and Councilman McAvoy and I were sworn in, so the time has changed. So we weren't consistent with our ordinance, but I'd rather stay with that fidelity, so when people do run, they know that they should be attending that meeting at noon on July 1st.
I do think we were asked our preference. appliances and more.
Plus a consistent ordinance.
Anyway, I guess that's the question is, so we want to just basically delete the location. Do we want to leave the time alone or do we want to remove the time?
I'm fine moving forward as this is presented.
Deleting the location.
Just deleting the location, moving the time. Moving everything.
All right, any other concerns? Should we ask Mr. Aloya to draft a revised version of the ordinance that solely strikes the location?
I would prefer that. I think that's more.
Please do so.
We can do that. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next ordinance for discussion, which is flags and municipal building colored lighting. Which I believe just simply adds regulation regarding the lighting for the municipal building. Would anyone like to discuss?
I have a couple additions.
Please.
Mr. Lawyer, for the lighting piece.
Yeah.
I would like to see added flag day. As red, white, and blue. September 11th, Patriots Day as well, red, white, blue. Police Week, which I believe is the second week in May, for blue. EMS Week, which follows Police Week, blue and white. Constitution Day on September 17th, red, white, and blue as well. International Firefighters Day, which is usually the beginning of May, red and white for firefighters.
I have my best to write those all down.
Yeah,
Assuming
can
you'll
you
send
say
it after the meeting.
I can-
We can certainly add those to the ordinance. This is in first reading in
Yeah.
I can send them to you. I went through, I want to make sure that we're representing all of our things on the flags. One of the pieces, the Policemen's Benevolent Association helped pay for one of the flagpoles, I believe at one point. And with the condition that their flag would be raised, and it was not something that was listed on here. If we could address that. And make sure that that's there. Yeah, that's not currently on this as well.
Any discussion from council members?
Well, thank you. I didn't know we had the ability to add additional things, so I really think we should be in October lighting purple for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. That would correspond with Child Abuse Awareness Month. So we don't want to forget about our domestic violence victims, since it's an ever-present issue in our community, and so I believe that's in October and it is purple.
Okay. The only thing I'm gonna raise as a flag here is to make sure that with things that are months versus things that are days, that we we make sure that we don't have things that are conflicting here.
So I also just want to raise that I thank Steve Neal for being really ahead of the game on adding Domestic Pride Month, but the council, when they saw that, they may have thought, wait, have we done this before? And we haven't. That's sort of like an emerging recognition month, and so
This is disability pride.
I'm sorry, I meant Disability Pride Month. What did I say?
Domestic.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. It's been a long day. So this year we're not raising a Disability Pride flag. It's kind of emerging in the disability space, but that's something that would be a good opportunity for the future. Of course, if we were to purchase any flags, it would need to be approved by the council for this ordinance.
Right. And the flag is actually, it does appear in here, number 4.
Yeah.
Disability Pride Month.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
Yeah,
and
we've
lighting.
actually never done that yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Anyone else? Council members' birthdays, do we get lights?
Only your birthday, Mayor.
Was that?
Only your birthday.
It's not between now and the end of the month. All right. Okay, does anyone, with those changes, and with some review, just to make sure there's no conflicts, does anyone object to having an ordinance prepared? So I'll ask for that additional review and.
Once the days are done, we can review it again.
Yeah.
You're gonna email, right?
Very well.
I'm doing it right now.
Okay. I made some notes. All right, moving on to, oh, sorry, I mean, you wanted to do, energy tax,
Yeah.
Yes. Please.
Oh, do you want to speak to it?
And there were, I have signed off on, we did pass a resolution regarding this, the energy tax receipts. Essentially trying to lobby the state government, which has been not following the formula and fully funding the energy tax receipts that are intended to go to municipalities. There is a large campaign from all of the mayors in the state to attempt to get some pressure on this. I have signed it on behalf of the town based on our interest from the council, and I hope that they will proceed with that.
Okay, and when did you sign off on that relatively recently?
Relatively recently.
Okay, right, so when the list first came out, we weren't on it, and then I
Right.
feel like I saw a county list, so
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, I think we do, as we look forward to our processes, you know, there are things that, you know, the mayors are asked to sign off on.
Right.
But as you pointed out, in our form of government, we have a weak mayor
Right.
and a form of government, and so we do need a process by which we can, as the mayor could efficiently review these requests, get sign off or agreement from the council, and then, you know, be able to sign on. Because I think it's important to sometimes be quick with things, and you know, we don't want our municipality thinking that we don't want, I think we're short about 1.9, you know, million dollars from
Right,
from the
exactly.
state of New Jersey that they took away from municipalities years ago.
And unfortunately, I mean, they sort of just, even though there's 9 different ways to organize a government, I think it is in the state of New Jersey, you know, Faulkner plus other things, they just dump us all into sort of one bucket and they just say the mayor can do this, that, or the other thing. In fact, the powers of the mayor are very different in all sorts of different communities. So, you know, when is the mayor speaking as the mayor of their individual opinion as an elected official? When is the mayor speaking on behalf of the governing body? When is the mayor speaking on behalf of the community? And this is something that I can tell you, I do think about before I say anything.
I know you do.
Yeah, but as on behalf of the mayor, but thank you for bringing it up. I have signed it, and certainly I hope my guess is basically that they probably put some more money in the pot, but I don't know that we should be expecting a check for $1.9 million next year, though. That would be out. So if not, go ahead and throw that into anticipated revenue.
So one more item of new business. Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin has proposed a program in the budget called Stay on JIC, which aims to give property tax credits to our senior citizens so that they can afford to live in New Jersey, which has the highest property taxes. Right now, currently, the Senate President Nick Carr is on board. There is a not agreement right now with the governor, and they're working out a deal. I think this is something that would be very beneficial for our senior population. So they hear about quite frequently, talking to all of our property owner seniors. And I would like that if the deal is not struck by our next meeting, June 26th, that we have a resolution ready that we can send to Governor Murphy, requesting that he does agree to the Stay on JIC program, and show our support to Senate President Scutari and Speaker Coughlin as well.
I would have no objection to having something prepared for discussion at the next meeting, and unless anyone has any concerns, we can review that in the interim and decide whether or not we
That's fine.
go forward.
I personally think this is a little bit premature, and there's a lot of great legislation out there, and I understand its intent. Though there's been more analyses and it's not so clear cut. It may leave out seniors, for example, who are renters. And so, you know, I think we have a lot on our agenda. And again, there's a lot of great legislation and budget items out there. We could be passing these sort of affirmation things all day long. So, while, you know, I don't think it's as directly, I support doing these types of resolutions when it's like the energy tax receipts, when it's directly related to putting money back in Verona's pocket as a municipality. But these things that benefit, you know, again, I've seen the proposal and I've seen some analysis, and it's really in flux. So we have a lot to do with our last agenda item. If it's still being discussed in July, great, we can revisit it, especially since the 5 of us will be sitting here.
Right.
That's my opinion.
I would still like to see a draft resolution. I think it's important for us to be advocating for our residents, especially our seniors who pay a lot of property taxes. This is exactly what we should be doing. We've heard from a lot of the public that the representation is important. We are providing representation by doing this.
Okay, well, what I would say is that you are within your powers to request such a resolution be drafted, and you may introduce it as a resolution from the floor if you'd like to at the next meeting.
Mr. Lyon, thank you very much.
Okay, there we go.
And I would appreciate it being on the agenda. Resolution from the floor is in the council have, and the council can vote on it in the affirmative or negative as they wish.
Okay, I don't have any objection with it being added to the agenda in that case. So if someone, you know, if it would end up being in the consent agenda, and if somebody wants to have separate debate on it, they more than welcome to do so.
So if the budget deal is struck, we don't need to have it.
Then we will discuss that in the next meeting. All right, moving on to general public comment. Madam Clerk, could you please read our general public comment statement one more time, since it's been a little while?
I'm sure some people do by memories. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any matter, please raise your hand if you're attending by Zoom by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. If you're attending in person, please raise your hand. Once you're recognized, please state your name and township. Residents, for the record, you're not required. However, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. We'll have 4 minutes to address the council. There'll be no cross dialogue during this public portion. After everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council may address your comments and or questions.
Thank you. Anyone like to come to the lectern, please feel free. So
Be brief, but I want to speak about N1, which I think is a great opportunity. The $60,000.
Sorry, just give your name for the.
Oh, yeah. Tim Kamudi, Verona resident, planning board member, master plan subcommittee, which leads me to a point. N1, your $60,000 for the tree and sidewalk infrastructure. I think I'm requesting that you prioritize Anne and Derwent that are very recent. I think there's an opportunity here to not only plant some larger trees, but even use curb cuts and other things that are in the master plan where there are speed bumps right now. That is a way to bring back quicker, restore some of the beauty and functionality taken away. And all the more reason for you to include the planning board in your municipal projects, because these are the kind of things that you'll be getting out of us. I'm just one of many members. Very quickly on the spread on the 4-foot distance, I think it's great. I appreciated some tick marks in Montclair recently where I parked in a 2-hour. It helped me understand, one, that that's where I'm supposed to, and where my bumper was. And I think I love the thought of I don't want sign pollution. And I think even temporary water soluble marks to get people going is part of, I think, an educational plan. And, if they eventually wash off, you don't have to do it in perpetuity. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? And then I'll go to Zoom right after. Okay, not seeing anyone else. Our Zoom commenter. And just your name and city of residence, please. We cannot hear you if you're speaking. Try again. Do you want her to go back out and try to come back in? We're gonna try and bring you back in. That might not be. It was that. That looks like that might have been something different.
Yes.
Sorry. Yep.
Hello.
Hello there. Your name and city of residence, please.
Yes, Christina Ford, Verona, New Jersey.
Go ahead.
I wasn't sure if I was gonna actually call in tonight because I kind of expected some of this mayor stuff to be a little bit different. I'm pretty sure you're all aware of a lot of chatter in our community, online rumors, and I know you don't necessarily want to address online rumors, but frankly, our community communicates with each other that way. And I did hear some people comment in support of, going along what has traditionally happened. Maybe if there's no law on it, maybe there's no ordinance on it, but I've been very attentive to the ongoings in town council, and I've had discussions with, I think, every single one of the people on the council. And I know, Mayor Ryan was the senior mayor, the senior person on the council. He held that position. And then Jack won his second term, and he lobbied for it to be based on, vote counts. And then Alex and Christine came in, and Alex was the senior one. And now this is Christine's second term. She won the popular vote in these elections 2 times. And I think people, and frankly, people who maybe have different opinions of who should be mayor are talking about this. So the community wants to know really if this decision has already been made, because that's what they're hearing, that certain members have come together and made a decision already. And maybe that's true, maybe that's not true, but full transparency, I think, will help quell what's going on in the community. I don't like the divisiveness. And I think everybody kind of probably knows my position on it because of the way I've been talking about it so far. But I would totally endorse Christine to be mayor. She has been present. It's not only the vote gettings, it's the transparency that she's brought to the court, or not the court, to the council. And I know that she has called me about opinions on things. I feel engaged with the community. I've talked to actually a couple of you about things that, you know, but she has been the one that has tried to give out the most information. And not only that, but she did win the popular vote. And I would submit to the council that the standards set forth by Alex, she checks all those boxes as well. I don't think that each council member kind of assured us that this decision hasn't been made in haste. And I don't know if that really matters, but I think it matters to the community. And I don't know that this discussion ended here by just saying, you'll find out on June 1st what's going to happen. That's all I have. Thank you for listening. I also, on a second little issue, I would say the curb thing could drastically reduce parking in certain areas where it doesn't necessarily block people's driveways. There could be areas of town that lose their parking, whether they have one car spots in front of their house and they need that. They need to maybe put 2 cars where it really doesn't affect the neighbors. And I'd like to understand more how that's enforced, where maybe it doesn't even matter and you're just reducing parking in parts of town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other commenters? We do have one more. Yes, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes, my name is Chris Riley. I live in Verona. 2 things I wanted to bring up. One is to piggyback on the last speaker. I think it would behoove you to address the rumors that are going around town, in the sense of, yes, process is process, but have you already made up your minds? And I guess the other thing along that, the conversation today, excuse me, where kind of this vote is going to take place over 2 days. It seems like that's the case. Then it won't be something that would be subject to the public hearing why you made your choice, and you know, everybody going on the record for what they did and why they did it. The second thing I wanted to bring up was just, and again, I can only speak to the part of town that I live in, and just seem to be noticing a lot more graffiti around town. And I don't know if that's something that is widespread or if it's just something that happens to be in the part of town that I live in. I do live in the Afterglow section, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have any other commenters? Last call. Okay, I will now close public comment. To Mr. Community, thank you for your comments on the tree replacement fund. I'm certain that we will take your suggestions into account. Going back to the mayor's discussion, I did, make some fairly extensive statements about my own position about this. Pretty much like anything else that we do here, the decision is not final until we take a vote one way or the other. That's, we can talk about things and we can vote whenever we choose to vote about it. I've heard all the public comment. If anyone else wants to comment, they're more than welcome to. One thing that I will say that does happen a lot during the month of June is that the 5 people that are going to be on the council, if there are different members or if it's standing members, tend to have a lot of conversations that month about this. So that's basically what's going on. And until July 1st, there is not a vote. So sort of my statement on that. As far as Mr. Riley's comment about a vote over 2 days, just to clarify on that, that's a contingency only. For example, if you go and there's a stalemate, let's assume that you have 5 people that all vote for themselves for mayor, and they do it, 5 times over and over and over again. You can't not have a mayor. So that's the only sort of situation where basically if the council doesn't decide within 5 ballots taken within 2 days as to who a mayor is, only then does it really go to that next step of it being a highest vote getter, assuming the person accepts it. If you go to that meeting and the council votes for a mayor and there's a majority of 3, then you have a mayor, and then a deputy mayor. If there's a majority of 3, you have a deputy mayor. So that's just to kind of explain that a little bit more. As far as the graffiti goes, please let us know where you see it. I've spoken with the police department in the past and the township manager and a couple other folks, and I have a very strongly negative reaction to graffiti that that is probably pretty well known as to how seriously I take it. So if there is some, I would hope that it would be cleaned up post haste. Just let us know where it is, and I'm sure it will be taken care of. So if anyone else would like to respond, please feel free. Anyone else? Councilwoman?
I just have 2 points. One, I just really want to vote. I do want to just note for item 4, thank you, Mr. Aloya, for bringing up the statute. The statute actually says we shall assemble at the usual place of meeting. So we can't actually amend the ordinance at all. We're not amending the time. We can't amend the ordinance because it says assemble at our usual place of meeting.
Does that mean the room or only the address? Can we still meet outside, or do we have
We
to
can
sit
meet
down here?
outside or we could do it here. I don't know if you need to read it that strictly, but the idea of changing it so that we can meet elsewhere in town seems to be made moot by the
So
statute.
my experience is you can actually change it. Normally you would meet outside is the way most councils have wanted to do it. But the other reason to change it is for, I'll call it safety and security reasons, particularly when there's 3 up. Even with 2 up, the crowds get too large for this particular room and usually go to the community center, which is a simple posting. So you can leave it as the councilwoman has suggested. I think removing it is fine because normally you are using the usual place of meeting, which is this building, these grounds. But in the event that you need to change it, that's usually the reason you change it is because out actually won't be able to convene.
So perhaps include language that says in the event of need or create some exception to it, but otherwise remains consistent with the statute. To Mr. Tamborough's point, we really want to be consistent with the law. And last but not least, I mean, I appreciate the discussion about the selection of the mayor. I've seen things on Facebook, which I thought was really interesting, because I have not otherwise been communicated with from my council members about their choices on selecting mayor. And I would note that the overwhelming majority of previously, there are some exceptions as we, but the overwhelming majority are that. And I would also just add congratulations. Okay, as the only female doing that, that is very extraordinary. And we have not had much female in this community, and that's very important. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman?
Mayor, I just want to address Mr. Community's point about the tree money going to winning and Cypress Law. The replacement money for those trees was included in the bond for the road reconstruction. So those trees will be financed, not out of this pot. That's a separate pot.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, with that, we're going to go into executive session. We need to take any official action thereafter.
Yeah.
Okay, no official action will be taken. We will return immediately thereafter. Thank you very much. Everybody have a good night.